so ready for this.
Your body is ready. The one thing I didn't set up, but that's fine. Okay, we're live. We're on the correct overlay.
Excellent.
First viewers will be filtering in shortly.
Oh man, that's amazing.
What's that? Oh yeah.
We're
So
live.
have you? I mean, while we wait for some viewers maybe to filter in here, have you been watching any horror movies? Do you get into the October spirit?
I do enjoy the concept of supernatural things, but scary movies it's usually hard for me to buy it because I hate the jump scare. So it's got to be like a psychological thriller. I'm
Fair
more
enough.
like a Exorcist is scary to me than a lot of other things. Just the concept.
Yeah. See, I'm not a big fan of of jump scares either, and I hate torture porn.
Yeah.
So like
Yep.
the Saw and Hostel wasn't too bad, but like that's just not my jam. Um, no, I was it is my mephathon. I'm like I play all the horror games and stuff, but I tend to like shift the palette, like dial it up and down because like Outlast for instance, I freaking hate that game. It's just all jump scares and nothing of substance. I'm like I can't stand crap
Right.
like that. All right, so if you're tuning in live, checking us out on YouTube later, I'm here with Ty, Fat Kid Sports on Twitter. We're going to be talking about tournaments. Actually, I saw a post by uh, saw a post by Plastic Crack today. Why even go to tournaments if you don't want to win or if you don't aim to win? And honestly, just kind of reminded me of like a sort of like a personal quest or journey I've been on this last year and a half or so of tournaments myself. And I mean, you've probably been grinding them out a lot longer than me, huh?
Well, so not too much longer. I kind of got into AOS, right at release, and before that, I'd maybe done like a combat patrol or very small one dayers at stores.
Mm-hmm.
So with AOS came kind of my first foray into that year at Adepticon, the Wild West of no no comp and craziness. I did day one of Adepticon and promptly went 0-2-1, I believe.
Oh, two and once you had a legitimate draw.
Well, Chris Broska and I, formerly, the Skull Bros awesome podcast that him and Rotor did. Uh, Broska and I had such a fun time at the end. We're like, yeah, that was a draw.
That's pretty awesome.
Bottom
So
table day one.
bottom table day one, end of day one. Man. So I guess I mean I like to start out when I don't really know someone's journey into Age of Sigmar. Uh, how did you get into Age of Sigmar? Are you a lifelong Warhammer gamer? Are you what was your journey
Yeah,
like?
I kind of had I guess, an arrested development with wargaming. I started when I was pretty young. I was in a game store with my dad. I think I was probably 12 years old and saw Epic, which Space Marine, which I thought was really cool. Got in through that. It had Battle Masters, the old Milton Bradley GW combo game.
Mm-hmm.
And then played some 40K and Fantasy Battle back then into my teens, but then stopped pretty much when I went to college and got back in, probably 5 or 6 years later, when some friends were like, hey, we know this guy. He's one of the guys I worked with, brother, and he's got this basement out in Waukesha where we play 40K. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in.
Is this the basement of death?
The basement of death, yeah. So about 10 or 11 years ago, met Troy through my buddy Josh, and the three of us have been, wargaming and board gaming and everything since then.
And you have an excellent podcast altogether too, playing and slaying.
Well, thank you. We definitely try to entertain, and it's mainly get together and catch up on what we've been doing. That's the fun thing about just getting on the microphone and having conversations with your friends and talking about what's relevant.
See that's like what's my favorite sort of, I guess, genre of podcast is the conversation between friends style, which is really what I honestly like inspired me to start doing RantCast, which is just my spin on that in a long form, unedited chats a part of the show type thing. So
Yeah.
you know, thanks. I mean, your show, and it's like the Midwest has some great shows, and yours is the one I watch every time it comes out. Like it's always immediately out because it's not just about Age of Sigmar and wargaming. You touch on like just kind of gaming in general and like hanging out, and I love that because I do think that like we've got these concentric circles of interests. You know, like we're not just wargamers. We love
Yeah.
other stuff too.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, when we think of like our gaming history, and where we came from, it's not just AOS now. We do play all these other things, and there's so much AOS content that's wonderful. It's it's kind of like you're throwing yourself out there into a just a very saturated world. So it's tough to be unique, and I think what you've done here is pretty cool because it's a different format. And a unique voice with the way the conversations and shows go. So it's been awesome seeing Coach and like Doom, some of those guys on here, and Bryce and Trist. You have this spectrum of voices.
It's really, I think, indicative of how like I kind of fell into the community and how the community just sort of like reached back. I mean, it's intimidating, and this is relevant to our topic tonight. Hey, Joanna. This is relevant to our topic tonight. It's really intimidating taking that first step out of like your LGS or like your basement or whatever, and out into the tournament scene and into the meta and all those things. Like it's kind of
Right.
intimidating. I think a lot of people's journey begins roughly the same. You play at a store, you go to the internet, and then
Mm-hmm.
if you spend too much time on Facebook or TGA or anything like that, it's gonna start to warp your view of what the actual tournament scene community is like. You're gonna
Yeah.
the term I hate is whack. You're gonna think it's just a bunch of whack tryhards just nickel and diming you at the table, and that's just not what it's like. I call it that guy. There's like that guy at every gaming store. There might be a that guy in your region for tournaments, you know?
Yeah. It feels like every 50-player tournament you go to, you're bound to get one in the room, which is like much lower than I think people expect up front.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, Joel. Good evening. But yeah, finishing your thought.
So one thing that is, just to talk about how I got in the tournaments and AOS in general, our Milwaukee scene is pretty competitive in AOS. A lot of pretty talented players. My brother and I walked into our local GW here with the intent of buying a new 40K army when AOS launched. But we saw the AOS.
So this is the Dark Ages pre GHB, like when it was just Vietnam.
It had just released, and we saw it. We're like, this looks kind of cool. Let's roll for it. 1, 2, 3. We start new 40K armies. 4 up, we play AOS. So we roll the dice at GW, got a 5 or 6, bought AOS, and we haven't gone back to 40K in the 4 years now. So
See that's crazy. That's awesome. You left it up to fate then, huh?
yeah. Fate led us to Age of Sigmar. So
Do just out of curiosity, do you skew more sci-fi or fantasy? I think there's
I probably more fantasy. I do enjoy sci-fi though, so it's I'm not hard either way, but I lean probably fantasy.
Yeah, I think most people have like a slight lean, not necessarily because if you're it's sci-fi and fantasy, right? Is the genre we kind of been basing. I feel like I'm aberrant. I'm weird. I love fantasy themes, but I always filter them through sci-fi. So like, I mean, you played in my one shot. Like, there's a fucking dragon in the 70s. Like I like taking like the super weird, or like where you super reality essentially is what I call it. Like where you just you crank everything up. And that's why I really like AOS is because I think it has that mythic quality to it, that goes a little too far, and so it's just like exactly my jam.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was a hippie dragon. It was a pretty great one shot.
it was definitely a lot of fun.
Incidentally, I did one shot Bryce. Sorry, Leroy.
Well, which is great because in our home game, Bryce is one of my players in the D&D campaign. I killed him with a dragon like 4 nights later, instant death. So
That's great.
yeah,
Oh man, free dragon love, man. That's right. Um, no, so see, man, it's crazy because the more I learn about you, the more I see like a strong parallel between like our journey. It's like I also had that sort of arrested development too, where I went, I started out in fantasy. I played up until I went to college, and then everyone played 40K in the college town, so I played 40K, and I just didn't play for a long time, and then now I'm back and it's AOS, so I
yeah,
missed out on the end times entirely.
I did too. All of a sudden, I was like, wait, what happened to the old world? And here we are in the mortal realms.
Well,
So
it's been fun for me rediscovering what happened because I feel like almost that journey kind of parallels like what a character in the Age of Sigmar Mortal Realms might be going through. Like, well, what the hell did happen? And you're kind of like running it back, and so it's like it's kind of been cool that way. Um, but yeah, so back to this tournament thing.
yeah,
Your first tournament then was actually Adepticon. Like you just jumped in the deep end.
yeah, I hopped right into the pool, horribly unprepared, with a mix of I had like reavers, I had some Phoenix Guard, some bolt throwers, 5 retributors. Like it was just a mix of order garbage that I had left over with some new Stormcast.
Hmm.
And I got smoked. I played Tyler Mengel and his Tomb Kings. I think round 1 got beat there, but awesome game.
Right.
Can't remember my round 2, but Broska and I played round 3. He was running like Chaos Demons, and it was just 2 guys having a blast rolling dice. So
Right on. Right on. So so like when I guess you're kind of like in the vein of like right between competitive and um like community guy, like social guy when you go to game. Like right? Like I guess you just went 4-1 with you won best destruction at Nashville. You went 4-1 with IJ. I was your golden trampoline to victory, I feel.
you launched me forward.
Launched you right straight to the top. Um, and like you managed to be social, have a blast, have some beer, like the whole weekend, and also finish 4-1 against a pretty decent field.
It was everyone has their moment, and I think that was my moment at the top. Like I don't know
That's it. It's all
ever
downhill.
ever be back. No, I mean, so to be fair, I've been playing a Stormcast army that I did primarily as a hobby focus for Holy Wars. And there I won, the like hobby hammer like trophy for it, all the conversions, everything.
I played this list. Your pseudo IDK.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the
the
deep
fish.
cast Eternals, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not optimized. It was models I enjoyed converting and painting. And then I decided I've been playing against my brother's Iron Jaws for 3 years now. So I know the army very well. I just had never used it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some, they were in a good place post General's Handbook. The spell lores, I won the
Giving
final
them that
game.
teleport was a
Yeah,
big arrow in the quiver for that army.
that teleport won me probably 3 of my 4 games. Just being able to launch forward and pin stuff in, or grabbing a back corner objective when needed. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like IJ tend to have like the jump turn, and then beyond that, they tend not to have much else beyond it. And then once you throw an at teleport, so now your opponent has to screen prop. They have to actually think about their back line instead of just like, oh,
yeah,
I'll just chaff infinitely in the front. No, it's just no. you're gonna play fair now. So it's just it was a very good change. Are you sticking with IJ going forward? Like now that War Clans is announced, like they're gonna be different now. I mean,
Yeah.
there were some obvious changes. I haven't checked the tome yet. When you do a watch everyone's very fine podcast or on their tome reviews, and I'll steal all their ideas for my show. No, I'm kidding.
That's what I do.
Yeah, that's
take
what you
and run it.
I just listen to what Vince says and I just say it differently.
I think I will. So I started my own Iron Jaws army. Instead of pigs, my Gorgruntas are Mangler Squigs. I'm standing brutes on them like they're riding squigs in the battle for my cavalry. Because, you know, why buy a single kit when you can buy 3 and match them together?
Yeah,
But,
just go all in. Yeah, go all in.
I have a significant problem. So
With conversions, or
the desire to, just take a bunch of kits and mash them together.
see, I don't know that most people would consider that a problem. I think most people are like pretty cool with that.
Well, it started with the Star Drake Leviathan conversion, and I haven't turned back since. So
I'll see, and here's and this is awesome because you're buying the extra stuff for me because I'm like a kit, like I'm like a kit bashes are sweet, but like I hate the forced conversion points on like paint score sheets. I despise that. And so like you're doing enough converting for me, so I don't have to as much. Like I just like I'll put like stupid hats on like on a bunch of on like 80 skeletons and Nagash, but like, I'm of the mind that if you like the aesthetic of an army, you're like usually when you get into an army, you like its aesthetic as it is, and Games Workshop has professional fucking sculptors doing a great goddamn job making those awesome things, and I'm like, and here I am, I'm just like, no fucking art degree, like, you know, I'm gonna fucking chop heads off models and smash them together, like,
yeah,
so you got that covered.
I'm working on it, and I mean that was my thing this beginning of this year, like going in the Holy Wars. I said, okay, I've done like my Death Army. I got it painted to a decent standard, but I want to just apply myself and go, you know, totally overboard. So I spent 3 months. Bryce kept me from quitting probably 17 times to get that army done as my like hobby coach. And had a blast with it.
Yeah,
so,
Bryce is a real, like, I called him a hobby hero, and he was just like, he looked surprised. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude, you are. Like, you keep, not only do you, like, keep people going, but, like, you also put up, like, good, like, you have good art, and then you keep people going. That is the definition of a hero. You know, people see your models online. And you actually... Your IDK army won a trophy for a reason, or not IDK. Your Deep Cast Eternals won a trophy for a reason. That's the army I when we grudged. That's the army I played at Midwest Meltdown.
Yeah.
And I crushed you mercilessly. So now
you did.
Now we're batting 500 against each other. The next one decides.
The rubber match.
yeah. The next the rubber match coming up sometime down the line.
But and then, you know, Iron Jaws was a list that so Donnie, one of the Michigan guys, 5-0'd at Meltdown with that Iron Jaws list I ran. I had an opportunity to borrow the models from Isaiah, the boy wonder Ramchek, and you know, it had to be the list because I'm a 2-3, 3-2 player usually. That's my like sweet spot.
Well, and this. Oh, we'll finish your thought and then we'll talk. I'll kind of segue into this plastic crack ad. I'm just gonna say crack because I think that's the intended pronunciation.
Yeah, I'm good with that. That's how I read it too. Peter can correct us at some point in time.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's just like adding me right now. Just anyway. Yeah. So you took the list and so you said like it had to be the list and this is. Where I'm going to agree and disagree simultaneously because, you know, conversation possesses nuance. I think that, you know, I always talk about, like, skill floors and skill ceilings, right? You know, so like as a player, you have a personal skill floor to achieve. Like you have this, you're climbing steps, then you get to the point and you're like, I have arrived. I am X amount of good, right? So you can be a 3-2 player, play a great list, go 4-1. You can be a 4-1 player, play a crap list, end up 3-2. And so I imagine that you hover around the 3-2, 4-1 naturally, but then lists you tend to bring might drag you down some, right? And then there's luck because it's a dice game, sure. Like we all have lucky matchups and so on and so forth. But like there is, it's weird because like it feels like simultaneously people don't want to talk about how important a list is to the game, and then but like everyone has an awareness of filth. If you notice that like in conversations, they're like, oh no, you can't. Oh, this army's. Oh, that army's just fine. There's no such. And then like next they're like, oh, I brought pure filth, and it's like, well, which is it? Because
yeah,
because like at some point people don't want to admit that like tools are important to get jobs done. They think that it's all the pilot, it's all the person, it's all on me. But like I don't know, if the best slugger in the world goes out there without a baseball bat but rather a 2x4, they're not going to get the job done. Tools are important to everything we do. Tools, technique, and time. Those are like the 3 T's of like of being great, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree that you have to have tools to complete a job. I mean, it's that's what there is to it. You can every so often, because it's a dice game, there's an element of luck that can skew it either way, and that's why you roll the dice.
That's why we play the game, though.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mitigating the risk of the dice with what you put in your toolbox. When you unload your models, that's ultimately what you're trying to do is put chance in its own tiny little place where it's not going to destroy your your plans.
Yeah. Yeah, you're mitigating chance with like a redundancy, like building good redundancy into your list. Extra rerolls for this, and I've got all of the bonuses to where the die I roll almost, my charge, I've got like a +3 off the charge, so that the dice almost are becoming a less important part of making a charge now. Like things like that where you're mitigating risk along the way. It starts with the list building. And so it's okay to admit that lists, there is such a thing as great lists and soft lists, and there's fluff lists, and there's the gamut between. It's okay to admit that. I feel like we'd be better as a community if we were just like, yeah, fine. But like, and then the flip side of that is, don't like, so you've got your list, and this goes with one of the things I like to talk about is like, so okay, now we've got our list and we understand that a list is a factor, but now you need to like gain that advanced tier of knowledge and then look at yourself, the player, and go like, was it just the list, or where did I make mistakes? And it's those things are super important. The better you get at the game, the more you're able to realize, when my play was the issue, when my list was the issue, when chance was the issue. Right?
Yeah, and similar to your own list, it's understanding what you're going to come up against.
Oh yeah,
in the tournament experience, and that's at NashCon. One of the things that really helped me a lot is I played against 2 Stormcast armies. I played against your Legion's list. I played against Free Guild, the same player I'd played the year before, so I knew. Like,
that is Tyler, right?
Thomas.
It's Thomas. Yeah, Thomas was on Free Guild, and you played Tyler Emerson as well, didn't you?
Yeah. Tyler Emerson was my loss. I kind of overcommitted, learned a very valuable lesson that ended up.
Well, you put the fries in front of the burger, or the burger in front of the fries.
Yeah, my lunchtime coaching was keep your sandwich behind your fries, and I launched my sandwich over my fries against Tyler, and he made me pay for it. So. Right. Sandwich being my maw crusher.
The fries being your screen. Yeah. Them hard boys.
But like I played against armies that I was familiar with from having played them. I've played Legions. I've played Stormcast. I've played against Free Guild, which isn't something that you see a lot in tournaments these days. I think very soon that will change. And then I played another Ironjawz list. So I had that, understanding of my opponent, and that helped me a ton too. where it wasn't like, oh, I've never seen new Slanesh before. Watch as they get 80 depravity points and roll me in 2 turns.
You dodged Slanesh, didn't you?
I dodged Slanesh, and I didn't have to play any Flesh Eaters somehow. So
I think IJ can beat Flesh. Old IJ can beat Flesh Eaters, and I think new IJ got, or not even new IJ. War Clan's got even more tools to like bring the monsters down. That's a just silver bullet in a half. Freaking War Clan's book just gonna poop all over Flesh Eater courts. I like that Chad has just invented a new term we need to get trending, which is a FAC player. FAAC, fun at all costs.
I love it.
So
did Tristan coin that phrase?
It could have been Frank. Frank has a habit of like making up great stuff. Frank's taking credit for that one too. So Frank coined Fantasy's Fantasy, or it's a fantasy game of a fantasy game, and now FAC. So Frank, it's almost like I should have you on this podcast at some point, because you keep coming up with stuff that's really intelligent. I don't, just like I have a problem with like whack. I think fun at all costs is probably a bit of a lie too, because I think with a win condition, psychologically speaking, a human in a game with a win condition wants to win. Like even if it's a small part of you. Like you're aware. I'll go a step further that if you're phoning it in against me and not trying to play the game of Age of Sigmar, I become like a little salty at that because I feel like you're like babying me or not taking it seriously. And so I think that I think that there's like a happy medium. That there is that none of these things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it comes down to what's your intent, and to get back to the article that we kind of touched on and saw on Twitter today, it's having that objective. What are you looking to achieve? Is it winning a number of games, maintaining rankings if you're playing in a system in which that that's a part of it, or is it going because that's where your friends are for the weekend? You want to roll dice, sure, you want to try to win a couple games, but you're not going to be heartbroken if you go 1-4. You might be heartbroken if you go 0-5 because
1-4 is rough. Stuff. I can't see. I can barely handle my 2 and 3 finishes where I'm just like,
But that you are a very competitive. You've played in competitive scenes in other games to a high level.
It's true.
So like every personality has that aspect of what are you here to do? What's your objective? And going into a tournament, mine's I want to win 3 games and I want to have a blast and make 5 new friends or play 5 people that I like to play.
All right. Tristan, thanks for hanging out for exactly 30 minutes and then leaving, as is your brand. It's his bedtime. I think, and that's the thing is like you go into these tournaments and you probably have multiple goals as a human.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't go to Age of Sigmar tournaments as religiously as I've kind of committed to for like the last year, and like going into like I have commitments all the way out through next year already, tournaments I'm signed up through. I have like me and coach are already like have an agreement, if he can make Midwest Meltdown, we're going to be in the teams event together. Like it's like we're talking like planning stuff over a year out. To heck, I'm planning 2 years out because I want to try to make CanCon in the future, like in 2 years about. It's like there's more, but like the thing is if I like travel down to Australian CanCon and I go 1-4, I'm gonna be vomiting blood on the airplane back. I'm just gonna be like, ugh, like I'm gonna, because like I want to go down there and for me, my competition, and I think the reason why I can win sports trophies and people can have great games with me, even though I have that competitive monster in me, it's there. It's I don't really like try to hide it. When I'm not the guy who, when you roll boxcars to land the charge against me, I'm like, yes, dude. No, that's never me. At the table, like, damn it. And like, but the thing is, I make it like like my persona, the way I'm able to communicate that, like, yeah, I'm upset that you rolled the 12, but like I'm not mad at you, and you know, like stuff like it comes across like, because the reason I think that like my competitiveness is able to show through and people still have great games with me is because I'm competing with myself first. And that is always my like initial competitor is me. I'm not trying to go 3-2 against you or 4-1 against you or 5-0 against the field. I'm trying to go 3-2 and 4-1 and 5-0 for me. Because I have something to prove to myself. And I think because people see that like that it's not them, it's me. They respond to it better than like if I'm just there to crush you and make you cry on the way home. It's a different type of competitor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
no,
go on.
I was just gonna say I totally hear that in that competition. You know, it's natural to have a desire to win, and I think when people try to hide that, that's where
the fake nice thing. Yeah, I don't like that so much. Like I'm like, dude, I hand dusted David Griffin's Star Drake in our game. I'm gonna bring it up forever. He had that game. Like Nagash is at half life from shooting from Paladors of all things. Like Nagash is going down off the priority roll at Brew City. And I hand dust his Star Drake off the table. He can't score the entire rest of the game. It doesn't matter if he tables me. I've got 2 points. He can table me. He can't score again. And he just like, no, you don't need like fake nice guy who's trying to hide that they wanted to win is gonna be like, oh man, that sucked. Oh yeah, oh man, great for you. I don't want that reaction. You should be upset. You know, like you should be. Yeah, you don't have to like hide that you're upset over me. If I rolled that 11-inch charge against you with my Grave Guard, and like now suddenly it's like, okay, maybe Andrew could steal his game for me. That's what I expect you to be thinking, and like to show in your body language. I rolled an 11 off of a 9. I needed a 9-inch charge. I rolled an 11. It was bullshit. Furthermore, I needed exactly 11 to get in. Like it wasn't even like I needed a 9-inch charge because like how there was like a little weird wedge sort of amoeba of like how I had to set up, and there was models interjecting. Like I basically needed the 11.
Yeah, you had to drop the near perfect charge.
Yeah. It's like I just like, I'm not saying go out and be an asshole to people or anything like that, but it's okay to like have real responses in games in a competitive sense. Like even if you're there to have fun and drink a ton of beer and stuff like that, it's okay to be disappointed when you lose, and it's okay to be excited when you win, and it's fine to feel your various emotions. You know, it's that there's a way to be courteous. You know, and there's a way you can take it too far, and so on and so forth. Like, guy who shouts "wah" at the tournament, there's like fucking 5 of them every tournament. That guy, like, stop it. Like,
I may have shouted "wah" like 2 or 3 times.
No, like you said it like once, like to me, but like the guy who just like, he like they had like a separate room for NashCon, and like I could hear "wah" shouted from the bottom table room. Like the literal basement, like, and like my fucking eardrum is ringing because I had like, oh man, I'm just like, you need to simmer down, dude. Like, but like again, like there's way, you know, being courteous and stuff like that. Like it's okay to feel disappointed at tournaments, but again, I think this comes from that, you know, why even go to a tournament if you don't aim to win it? Because I think we have multiple motivations simultaneously as human beings at all times. I'm a lot different in D&D as a GM because there's no win condition. My win condition is telling you my story. That's the win condition, right? If you fail the perception check I really wanted you to make so I could describe how fucking awesome this thing is, I'm upset because the win condition in that situation for my players, is me getting to describe the awesome thing. You know. Same shirt.
Is that must be Bryce? Yeah,
that is Bryce.
What he doesn't tell us is he's probably wearing something like this.
Yeah, he's wearing his BOD shirt right now. He's got his hoodie on, the one that looks like Fallout.
But when you talk about motivations for going to the tournaments too, like I think expectation weighs into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
There are certainly some people that go maybe to their first tournament or early on where they think I'm really good in my home group. I beat up my 3 friends all the time. I'm going to go win a tournament, and then they go 2-3 or 1-4 because it's
a higher caliber player.
It's the repetition. Like before last year, I was playing maybe 15 games in a year, and last year I played close to over 100 games of AOS. Like getting the reps in and understanding your rules, your opponent's rules, like that's huge. You can't have an expectation of being a tournament monster without
going to tournaments.
The timing, going and
well,
that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I mean it's. I mean, if you go to 4 tournaments in a year, right? 5 games a day, that's 20 games. The average player, even if you play once a week, twice a week for a few months, you're not hitting 20 games, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not hitting 20 games against a diverse meta. You're probably playing the same exact 3 lists over and over and over again. There's a Skaven player at my local store. The poor bastard's never beat Nagash. Like, can you imagine the rants this guy must go on freaking on Facebook or whatever about how busted Nagash still is, and he damn well deserves to be 850 points. I'm like, you're like one of my hardest counters in the meta.
He has an entire subreddit. It's like Nagash hate subreddit.
Yeah, like the full subreddit.
He just spouts bile about death and Hand of Dust and
how much of an asshole do I look like? And I'm just like, yeah, man, I'm shelving Nagash, and he's like, he's never been. Like, he's just like, But like that's the thing is like I can't expect that outcome at a tournament. Like if I go up against, if I go up against 10 Skaven lists, I should lose to 8 of them. Like I just should. Because as skilled as I am, at some point list does matter.
I think it's one of those things where when you have players with equivalent skill levels,
yes,
list and experience there's this balance where you give 2 players of an equivalent skill level heavily skewed lists, one that's very present in the meta, and one that might have been the last GHB where it was
good a year ago.
Good, yeah. You're gonna see the players of equivalent skill manage those lists in such a way that they still might have a good game, but one's gonna have a pretty significant advantage in that matchup.
Yeah, it exactly. It's and so it's not bad to talk about that. The other thing that then you have to recognize is that maybe taking the right list is itself a skill. List management is itself a skill. Knowing what to build, what to bring, meta prediction. One of the reasons I talked when I was on Warhammer Weekly for the meta chat episode, I don't know, like a month or 2 ago, was one of the reasons I love where I think Age of Sigmar is going is because you're getting to the part now where meta predicting is going to be a lot more important for figuring out like how to win tournaments. The difference between going 4-1 and 5-0 or 3-2 and 4-1 is going to become meta prediction. Because it's not just going to be there's always going to be like the current busted thing, right? Fine, cool.
Sure.
But like you got to make it out of the jungle, as we say. Like you got to make it out of the jungle. You got to make it out of the middle tables to encounter that top list, or you get paired into it unluckily round 1, whatever. But you're gonna have to make it out of there to like go head hunting that top list. So what do you bring? And do you bring the top list? Well, if you bring the top list, people are head hunting you. Do you build something to like beat the top list? Do you think you can dodge it and then build something that's great against the jungle? Like that's what I really look forward to, and I think that's in and of itself a skill. Now we do deal with a game that has the meta evolves a little bit slower than some other games. in general, because we have the hobby hang up. It takes a while for the new armies to come out. We're not going to see the hobby hang up as bad with Iron Jaws and cities. People have that stuff waiting around. We didn't see it with Skaven too much. Now, people weren't on the best Skaven list, but we saw Skaven in the meta immediately.
Right.
You're going to see that with cities, and that's why like these two books coming out, OBR in the future, which we're going to see the hobby hang up with that one. The meta is in like a really cool sort of period of rapid change right now, which is where meta predicting skills and like being able to like kind of like put your finger to the wind and guess like, okay, I think this is going to be really good right now. And if you got 2 armies, 3 armies, or you've got the one army that you've like stuck with for a year, but you've got multiple kits hanging around. You've got like, oh, this, I was running Raptors before, I didn't quite like them. Well, maybe now Raptors are good. And Storm, I had the crossbows. Well, I pulled the crossbows out. I put, sequitors in, more sequitors in. Well, more sequitors wasn't the answer. I'm going to, if you have those extra models, and chances are, if you've played your list for a year, you do. Now you get to tailor your list to the meta. Now you get to like predict the meta because there's multiple threats. There's multiple natural predators going around. And that's awesome.
Anything where you see that like dynamic change in a short amount of time, I think makes for a more exciting tournament experience, and just in general, seeing more stuff out there, seeing different lists. I think it was AOS Shorts that put up like there were 3 or 4 events over the last weekend or two, and out of top 10s there were something like 16 different factions represented in these top 10s, which to me is awesome. And I think you're only going to see that broaden as we get the releases of cities, war clans, eventually OCR. Like there's going to be this infusion of rapid change, and lists will have to adjust. Different factions will have better answers. It's actually pretty exciting when you look at our community's ability to get new things, have fun, and see success with them.
Well, and you kind of skirted on like one of the details I really like about this, for like, we have multiple reasons to go to a tournament. Seeing other people's sweet ass armies. Like usually it's right between round 1 and 2. I don't really eat lunch. I just walk around and take photos of everybody's army. Like that's where I go around and I look at all the armies. It's actually between rounds 1 and 2 usually, because like you get used to seeing your armies back at home and stuff like that. And like now you're kind of getting to the point where like if I know who's at the tournament, and I know getting to know about like 20% of people, maybe 25%. Like I show up, 50-person event. I probably know a good portion of the field at this point in the Midwest anyway. And like, so like I get used to seeing certain armies, but you're getting to the point now where like GW has like infused extra armies and extra interesting kits. So like even the people who like were used to like Mark Ramchek, who you're just like, you're going to see Cord, no, like he's bringing Skaven to Circle City and stuff. It's, you're gonna see these, like, you're gonna see more armies, and just like not just from a meta implication standpoint, but the sheer enjoyment of going to a tournament, seeing someone's take on what they think cities should look like, the colors they choose, the basing. You're gonna get to see all of that too, and I think that's even better. Instead of seeing like the first Dragonfall, it was just like, it was Nurgle and Sylvaneth as far as the eye could see. Like it was just like it was like half the art in the room had to be that. And like there was some great Nurgle and it's stellar Sylvaneth, which I think I gave my like favorite army vote to, was the Sylvaneth army there. Stellar. But it's still like, okay, I've seen all of the Nurgle now. I'd like to see, I remember staring at a Wanderer's army because it was like the only Wanderer's army I had seen in the wild in a whole calendar year of competing. I'm just like, is this Wanderers? Like the butterfly flies by, is this Wanderers? Like, so I like that we're gonna, especially from cities, you're not just gonna see like the humans or the the elves. You're gonna see the dwarf. You're gonna see it all. You're gonna see some stuff that, for me, things I had forgotten existed. I'm looking forward to seeing people's executioners on the table again, because I love that model. I love the masks, the the swords. Like, I'm going to see those again. Christian Ware's Phoenix Temple Army, which I've seen a bunch, but it never gets old seeing those, the Phoenix Guard and stuff, where you're just like, man, I forgot these guys look that sweet. So I'm looking forward to just that from tournaments going forward.
Speaking of seeing some of those units, this is just a quick off thing.
Oh no, it's all right. Jump down that rabbit hole, baby.
What kit out of all of those battle line choices and the what we've seen possible in cities do you think would benefit the most from a reimagining? Because for me, it's Phoenix Guard, man. Like all of them,
man,
the same way. It looks intimidating and cool, but there's so much they could do with that. I want to see like that kit get redone.
Joanna with the quick draw on the meme here. Like that instant. Is this Wanderers? Yeah. Yeah. Like So like the Phoenix Guard, they look great. They really benefited from that book too. So you're gonna see them in not just Phoenix Temple style lists. You're gonna see them as like the battle line choice in whatever the Rend 1 like is a huge change to their already existing profile.
And no change to the 4-up, right?
Yeah, they've got their double save, essentially they've got their after save as well still, the 4-up to the 4-up. Mm-hmm. Whoo! Like what a oh man.
They're tough.
Yeah, they're tough. Like what a proper battle line unit. Just an absolute switch hitter like battle line unit. You can trust it to be an anvil and like hang back. And if you charge it with something lame, it's going to kick its ass. So you're going to have to actually throw something intelligent at it. That's the problem with like Ungors and Gores and stuff like in Beasts of Chaos. The thing that's awesome about skeletons. When you sit there with like Gores and Ungors, you're like, they can throw like 5 Kinnerai at that and it's fucking gone. You can't do that with the Phoenix Guard. Like, you're going to have to throw something real at it. So that's really awesome.
So what kit do you want to see get redone? What models do you think are ready for a
pure update?
Yeah, that city. So focus on cities. We've got all these, rank and file from old days of fantasy, and people have done a good job with converting cities, which I think is awesome. But I mean, just out of the box, which one of those kits do you want to see get new models?
I'm not going to say any of the elves, because I fully expect, we're going to get the Malarion and Teclis elves in the future as, like, new factions. Like, I fully expect that to just happen at some point. Next year, 2 years, whatever. Great Sorters. I want to see Great Sorters reimagined AOS style. Because they're already really awesome, and the massive cod pieces and feathers in the cap. I just want the new technology, our new sculpting technology on that.
You want better cod pieces?
Better cod pieces. Like, we can go a step further. I have been to the top of the mountain. I have seen Catacrosis cod piece. Yeah. We can do better for the OGs of the cod piece.
We know that there have been advances in codpiece engineering, and we need to see them brought to fruition.
Exactly,
as well.
Yes, exactly. We have seen the future of codpiece technology, and I would like to see that. Great Sorters.
Wonderful.
On a little bit more like grounded note, like the new tyrant for ogres that we saw with like the Maw tribes. Yeah. Was already like ogres already kind of have their like cool like pseudo-Mongolian aesthetic that's like really neat. They're one of the more, if you talk about like traditional like Dungeons and Dragons or like Lord of the Rings fantasy, ogres are one of those things that I think are like, they're kind of like, it's not just like dirty LOTR the way some of the other models in Warhammer Fantasy were for me, where like you're just making a dirty version of Lord of the Rings, like dwarves, for instance, Chaos dwarves come to mind immediately. Like, oh, cool, way to just whatever. Like, but the ogres, they already kind of had their unique going in their own direction aesthetic with, holding the huge cannons, and they already had that. And to watch that tyrant get brought into Age of Sigmar, and just like subtle nudges, like with what stuff was on his belt, and I think he's got like a Sigmarite like emblem like as a trophy, and just seeing little things like that. I want to see that for human models, specifically the Great Sorters, because they're just so iconic.
Very, very cool, and I
two up cod piece save. Yeah, two up cod piece after save. Like they're just like ting, like they do the Captain Morgan pose, like to block an incoming attack. Like all of their bases have barrels on them, and they're always just like standing on the barrel with the sword up over the shoulder, and like, you fool.
I can't wait to see what Coach does for cosplay at CanCon.
I might be on board with the speaking of reasons to, you cosplay as your army at the LGS. That's just a Saturday. You go to a tournament in cosplay, like it's an event. It's come on. It's just, there's tons of reasons to want to go to a tournament, even if you're not going to win. If you're bringing your outdated list, fine. If your old list looks, you've got a great theme, you've got a great story, you've got some nostalgia for it. Whatever your reason for bringing, because I also see people insecure about their army, right? Or they're like, oh man, my list sucks, and they go to and they're like, I don't want to go to a tournament because my list sucks. I'm like, okay, well, your list sucks, so now you need to temper your expectations. It was one of the things you were already talking about, is expectations a big part of tournaments. Manage your expectations. You pub stomp people at your LGS, the term is a local hero, right? You're a local hero. Well, you're going to go to a tournament with 50 local heroes. Congratulations. Or 40 local heroes and 10 people who are like, hell yeah, man, this is a tournament in my backyard. But, like, you're going to go to that, so, again, the competition's a little bit higher. So temper your expectations. But it works the other way, too. If you have the low expectations, where oh man, my list sucks. Well, maybe you need to shift your perspective on what you're expecting. Maybe you're not, wins is just an irrelevant portion of going. It becomes about the cosplay. It becomes about, like, selling your army. If you modeled a great army, or custom, your army is just like, you're using a bunch of cool stuff, outdated kits that people don't see a whole lot, that becomes part of what you should bring that into your expectations. People are going to get to see stuff that they don't always get to see.
Yeah, that unveiling of the army, it's a great feeling. Like, one of the things I love most about that Holy Wars experience with the Deep Cast Eternals was setting that army up for the first time to show people. I didn't have any aspirations to win 5 games that weekend. It was, I want to show off this really sweet project that I like. Mm-hmm. And that was a big part of it. What is Bryce saying? Oh yeah, I was gonna go 0-5 at NashCon. That was my mantra on the trip down. And the days leading up to it is I would not win a game. But
I don't know. I'm not gonna, set your. I don't know. Like, different people have a different thing that works for them. So I'm not even gonna give some blanket advice for setting your expectations high, because if you fall a little short, you won't be super disappointed, or setting them low so that you can't be disappointed. I'm not gonna talk to that, because we've all got our different things. I think in general, try to be realistic with what you should expect in terms of your win-loss. But I think incorporate other perspectives into what you wish to accomplish when you go to a tournament. Honestly, for me, a big draw is the community at this point. On one hand, like, networking, sure, whatever. But no, it's really just about, like, I talk to people a lot on Twitter. Like, I engage with a ton of people on Twitter. And to actually go and, like, meet them in person is, like, a big deal for me. Which is why I would like to propose something right now to the entire Twitter community. Change your fucking profile photos when you go to a tournament. And then do the thing that everyone does at every other convention and tournament in the world. Write your name and then at the tournament or whatever you're at, and change your fucking profile picture. Your model is gorgeous. I really, really love your tyrants of bloodthirster there. It looks amazing. You're right. It's 100% on theme. But switch it to a picture of your fucking face so that when you're talking to me, and you're talking to me as if I should know you, and I don't know who the fuck you are, I can like, oh shit, you're this guy I talk to on Twitter all the time. Like,
or put your handle on your shirt, just like I'd walk around with @FatKidSports plastered on my chest.
Right.
I'd be like,
right, yeah. So like do that, or cosplay as your model. So you could, if you cosplay as the model that's in your profile pic, I'll get it. Also, Cultist Chan is one of the greatest things to ever come from 4chan. Not gonna lie. Yeah, cosplay as your avatar. That works. Oh yeah, and then what Great at the Table Studios says here is sometimes when you play things people don't see often. Yeah, for Wanderers and Free Guild up until Cities, I used to call that like you can get a phantom win because of unfamiliarity. If people don't know your list, and this is just kind of a big universal rule. You were talking about part of the reason you went 4-1 at NashCon is because you played stuff you know. That's a really important part of hashtag getting good at the game of Age of Sigmar is knowing lists. It's literally in every competitive thing. MTG, a full 80% of being good at Magic the Gathering is knowing the field, knowing the other decks. Because it's such a linear game. Like Magic is very linear. It's you 7 cards in hand, this many cards in deck, hidden information. If I can play this, I tap the mana, I curve up, blah 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 blah. Very linear game. Right. Like, so it's all about the field in that. Street Fighter, same thing. Knowing your matchups. Cammy usually beats this character. So, if I play that character, I need to know that Cammy's going to whoop my shit, or I need to get good at beating Cammies. I need to learn new tech, or I have to have what we call the pocket pick. Like, you've got the pocket pick thing that beats Cammy in case you come up against one. But that's a skill. Is acknowledging the field, acknowledging your matchups. And yeah, you get that with the obscure list, you can phantom steal a win with obscure lists.
Yeah, it can happen. And the threat assessment piece of AOS is you have to know what it is at deployment. Because when that unit gets in your face, that's the wrong time to learn, how many attacks they have, what damage they do, what their ren's like. You've got to know that at deployment so you can adjust and adapt to it.
And here's the thing is, like, you're not going to memorize their army at deployment if you haven't played it before. So, like, you're going to go into that threat assessment. I don't know how many times I've told people my entire list, and then they're surprised when I do the thing I told them I was about to do. Because, and it's not on them, and it's not on my teaching style. I might be a terrible teacher or whatever. It's information over. There's a lot of information in Age of Sigmar. Tons and tons of information. This is why the cheat sheets are so great.
Can we give a shout out to AOS Reminders? That site that I think is it Davis
Ford.
His site is incredible, and that's study material that I'd recommend for anyone going to a tournament is to run your own list through that, to take that element of full memorization out, give yourself a study material for the night before, and even run some lists you may see there through it, just because it's incredible. I know he's done just a great thing, and I hope it's crazy how he keeps expanding it. So hopefully people get to his site and back him.
Yeah, throw him some love. He's actually got a Twitter poll up right now. I believe it closes tomorrow, or it's should he work on some not Azir thing or do other features? And I voted for other features because 90% of people really do use Azir or War Scroll Builder. There's no reason to go off script. There's really not something else those other programs are using. But different but not better. The way I describe all of Apple's products. Look for AOS RantCast on coming soon to iTunes podcasts. So this is my binder. I went to Gen Con, the where I won my hammer, something I still have over Brendan that he doesn't have. Uh, and I went there and I didn't have a binder yet. I actually brought all of my books with me there. I did that one time, and I'm like, yep, it's all going in a single binder. So I have my pathetic, personally written, typed up cheat sheet, but now I'm switching over to the AOS reminders format because it's clean. It doesn't miss information unlike my human brain does sometimes. And then I have my and I think about when I compile my binder, I think about the question think of it like an FAQ for your army too. I put the information in there that I always get asked: ranges on spells, casting values on spells,
Yep.
the locus of power, or what is it, locus of power, or whatever on Nagash when you double cast spells. People always ask how that works. All that information goes in my binder. Deployments go in my binder, because whilst I think I have them all memorized, you're always just like 1 second guess away from realizing you don't, and then you start to second guess yourself. And then now you have to measure physically. So I keep stuff like that. And some tournament packs throw that stuff in there for you. Cool. It's awesome. But more information is always better to less information.
Yeah, the tokens they do. And last year when I was playing my Lords of Sacrament list, I had a lot of spells, with not a Nagash level of spells, but Tony Moore, one of the UK tournament players, he had made Magic the Gathering style cards with all the spells, command traits, the artifacts from the Legion's book. So printed those off, and it's just so nice to put the card down. Remember, you buffed that unit. Remember, you did this. Managing your game is I probably have said such and such is 50% of your success, but managing your game with resources, like marking what you're doing, having those cards ready, that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, and you shouldn't feel bad for doing those things. It helps your opponent a lot of times because AOS is what is known as a perfect information game. You have all the information of Age of Sigmar. Both players are allowed to know all of the information at all times, right? It's a perfect information game. So put the information out there in a clean, concise, recognizable way. Tokens are fantastic for that. I'm gonna buy a pack of the resin wound counters because it took a single eureka moment for me to realize they're more efficient to now I'm off of dice. They're simply more efficient, than dice. Dice get bumped. Dice get moved. It takes one time where I move my Vlazda. I move him and I set him down and I move the wound counter with him, and then my opponent goes, "Wasn't that a 6 before? Wasn't he down to 6 life?" And I go, "Fairly certain he was at 8. "Yeah, but wasn't it 6? And then I just go, "Can I meet you halfway? 7? He's like, "Well, I'll roll you for it," and which is the same thing. And I fucking hate deciding shit on a roll, and I hate meeting you halfway on things like that we could have had perfect information on, right? We could have had perfect, but we play this game in real time. Dice get moved all the time, and maybe I did forget. Maybe I was at 6, but maybe you're a nickel diming asshole. I'd rather just take that entire situation, that entire second guess, one way or the other, out of it. Wound trackers now, forever and always.
Then that next turn when you drink from your chalice of blood and go up to 12 anyway, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Sure. I mean, and Joel, you've got you've got the podiums and stuff to back it up. But like I said, it just took that one die move, the one time one opponent questioned me on my die, to be like, "Well, wasn't he had 6 wounds remaining?" And I'm fairly certain he was 8. "Yeah, but wasn't he 6? And I'm like, "God damn it, now we have to do a stupid ass roll off, a 50-50, and then I'm like, "Well, I'll meet you halfway, I'll do 7 remaining. Is that cool?" "Yeah, cool, whatever." I'm like, "You conceded so fast, I know you knew it was 8, you fucking asshole."
I can't believe Bryce did that to you.
Yeah, and at an LGS, and that's another thing, is at an LGS, whatever, it's 6. This game doesn't matter to me. But like at a tournament, it's not that like again, I'm not trying to like I'm not like I ask anyone. I've got the sports votes and trophies to back it up. Like I'm a player that you want to play at these tournaments. I have people now going to their first tournaments wanting to grudge me specifically because they think I'm just gonna like be nice to them and like help them. Like, no, I'm an asshole.
No, he's gonna hand the dust your toys off and make
every time, and I'm gonna laugh the entire time I'm doing it.
Yeah, that Maw Crusher had a great first turn.
It was 5. I was being kind.
He did not have a good second turn.
He didn't exist. I was surprised I hand dusted him off, and it was.
Oh, come on now.
It's a 40% chance.
Yeah.
After every tournament I go to, Kyle Knapp comes up to me afterwards and like, "What's the hand of dust total?" I'm just like, "It's 2, man." He was like, "Geez, man, I had like 10." I'm like, "I know." I know you had 10. I had 2. What's your game win total? Less than mine. Suck it. But no, it's like no, I mean I think getting back to this and kind of rounding off this point is I think more information is preferential to less, and the big important thing is keeping it clean, concise. You don't want to. I found myself bringing shit I didn't need to my first tournaments. Where you really think you're going to need all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then, like, you're over-prepared, which is about as bad as being under-prepared, because now it's harder to move between games, you're overwhelmed, you're juggling extra crap, your table's cluttered, you don't have a clean gaming space, so now you're, like, stepping on your own toes when you're moving models and you're deploying. So it's just... And that does, I think... There are people out there who are organizational geniuses. I am not one of them. My office looks pretty organized right now, but that's only because I know exactly where the frame is for my camera, and it is just shit pushed into the corners.
Yeah, my basement's a hot mess, so hopefully you can't see much of my hobby hole. But
yeah,
it's a disaster zone.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So, like, some people are, like, organizational geniuses. I'm not one of them. It's been a trial and error process for me to refine my tournament going to, like, preparation. And it's still a work in progress for me. But I get a little cleaner every time. I ask for tips every time from people who just have a good system down. And you're going to incorporate what works for you. For Joel, the die that is a different color die that never gets rolled works. But for me, it's like, okay, it's time for tokens. Because whilst I don't just grab any die on the 40k table or the Warhammer table, I'm not one of those players. There are players like that who just like, boom, I need to save now, and they grab the die and they roll it. I'm not one of those, but the token takes out that ever being a possibility. The most you're going to do is mix up your tokens or forget to tick it up or down. So, preparing well before you even go to a tournament is just something you don't necessarily think about if you're, deciding to go to a tournament. Why should I go? Like, that's, you'll figure it out, but just be aware that preparation before you even get there. How are you going to handle your game aids? I've started taking now, like, basically a tackle box instead of a dice bag for all my dice and markers and stuff.
It's a good call.
It's been a revelation. The minute I saw, like, someone on Twitter posted their little, like, looks like a toolbox with, like, dice and objective markers and stuff, and I'm like, why the hell haven't I been doing that? And I know why, because this dice bag right here, this is my D&D dice bag. This thing is older than any relationship I have in my life. Like, friends, family members, this thing is ancient. And that's all my D&D dice. And that works great for D&D. But, like, D&D's not Warhammer. Like...
No, it's not. It's the more organized you are, too, the easier it is to just let yourself get really drunk. Because
yes,
you mitigate your
blunders.
Inability to organize later. If you set it up in a way that you, like, can just get hammered and then still make things happen.
See, that's probably the most important point you'll take away from this episode of RantCast. Is it really, how can you get the most drunk without becoming a liability at the table. Because there's a certain... First off, don't be that guy. You know, people talk about, like, whack, nickel and dimey, that guy. Whatever. Don't become drunk at all costs player. That player's not fun to play against. I'm from Wisconsin, so I take for granted how good I am at handling my liquor and doing things when I'm drunk. That, like, so as you start to go out into the world and play against other people, you actually run into knock over your fucking Maw Crusher guy who's too drunk to, like, even move their models. That's not cool. You're like, don't do that, please. So, like, learn your limits. Learn your limits in all things. That's just good life advice.
Yeah, and if you don't learn your limits, just, realize that you're going to end up sleeping under a table.
Jacob Berry?
Well, he sleeps under tables because he knows his limit. He knows his rest.
But he does the nap and rally too, which is its own refined technique. Is the nap and rally.
He's a legend of the nap and rally.
You need to be able to handle your piss if you want to play Warhammer while drinking.
Oh, wiser words have never been.
Oh yeah, like if you're taking 3 piss breaks during the game.
Joel, you're my hero. Cheers to you, man.
Yeah, Joel. Yeah, Joel will actually be on the show later this month, so I'm looking forward to that. So we're getting like the friendly hunky-dory tournament chat out of the way here, because then it's just going to be all ball-busting tournament chat. How do you go? How do you become the whack monster you want to be inside? That'll be Joel's episode.
Maybe Joel can become my coach. How I get to 5-0.
You've been to the. You see, you're approaching the top of the mountain. You're near the summit. You're at that last landing right before the summit. The 4-1 best in faction. Next is best overall, 5-0. How do you get there? Do you want to though? I guess. Do you want to though? Is that a goal?
Oh, I would love to. I mean, I don't know that I play enough to get there. We'll see. But once you taste that, second overall, it's like, oh man, what would it have been like to go 5-0? I don't know that I'll ever get there, but maybe Joel or is it Darren Watson, positive victim in the UK? I saw he threw out like what do people think about coaching? It's an interesting thought. Like what does it take to get there for an average Joe like me?
If I'll put Darren struggled with like the moral question of like, should I charge to coach? And I'm like, one, yeah, it's fine. Whatever. If people are willing to pay you for something you do, fine. That's on them. That's not on you. Like I don't think there's a moral ethic question involved. If someone's like, hey, I know you'd write this thing for free, but like, what if I hand you $10? Will you still write it? And I'd be like, yeah. like I know that you opine constantly, but what if I pay you $5 for your opinion tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, as long as it doesn't like compromise stuff you already want to do in your own life, hell yeah, take the money. Yeah. But then my bit of advice for that would be like, figure out what the difference between when you're coaching and when you're just like giving you a friendly tip or a reminder. You gotta figure out a way to partition that off from other parts now, because it does become a job or a source of income, not necessarily a job. And so once you factor that next tier in, now you got a decision to make, right?
So it is an interesting conversation. I know we've talked about why you go to tournaments and winning being a part of it. One thing too that I think we talked a little bit about, but the travel for us, we're in such a great place here in the Midwest with opportunity for not incredibly far distances to get to a lot of events. That, and depending where you are, that can change things. There are certainly people that may be in areas where it's much harder to get to events and you have to pick that one. But for us, going to tournaments is relatively easy, not incredibly costly, and once you have some travel road buddies,
exactly,
it just becomes something that's a nice getaway, chance to hang out with some friends and see some of these other venues and other groups of people, which is top part of the experience too.
Man, that's something I think we take for granted here in the It would be easy to take for granted in the Midwest. I don't know that anyone in the Midwest specifically is like just taking it for granted, flaunting it all over Twitter and like, man, I just went to a tournament every month. Suck it, West Coast. Like, I don't know that anyone's doing that. But no, it's something that would be easy to take for granted because we do have so many like quality venues and tournaments. You can go to a tournament a month and probably not have to drive more than 6 hours if you live in the Midwest. Well, if you live like Upper Peninsula, Michigan, fine. But like if you're like in Chicago specifically, you're probably not driving more than 6 hours for a tournament in any direction.
Yeah, I mean, look at October, Circle City in Indianapolis next weekend, Dragon Fall in the Chicago area.
Holy
3 weeks
Havoc.
later,
Yep.
And Holy Havoc, end of the month. You've got 3 major events in October alone.
I already have one bet with you, Joanna. I'm not making a second bet. I'm not a betting guy, but here we go. Yeah, like it's no, I mean that is fortunate, and the travel buddies thing is super important. I didn't realize how easy it was to go to a tournament last minute, which is like danger for future Andrew. Until like it was just like, oh yeah, NashCon. Oh, NashCon's got more spots now, and I was like, I told David Griffin, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll have to make next year because you're full up, and he's like, oh yeah, extra spots, and I'm just like, could I even make this happen? I asked out loud to just the void, and everyone answered, oh yeah, dude, ride down with us. Oh yeah, like we got an extra spot in our room, just paid this portion of the I'm just like, yep, it's that easy. Like suddenly I'm going to NashCon, like it just like that. But that's the thing is like that's on the strength of the community.
Yeah,
like that is on the strength of the community. It's this hobby continues to amaze and surprise me. And why someone would be afraid to leave their LGS to go to a tournament. Unless you're that guy. Fucking stay at your LGS. I don't want you at the fucking tournament. But, like, just fucking stay there. And the thing is like, that guy gets his shit pushed in by, like, Relian and stuff. And then, like, quits being a that guy. or whatever. Like, so, like, we have police on the table that'll just wreck you, and then, like, you won't feel like a that guy as much anymore because you're just gonna get destroyed.
You get your that guy comeuppance.
Right,
yeah.
That guy comeuppance. That's a thing we don't talk about. Is like that guy comeuppance happens at the tournament scene too. Yeah, so like it's just like I guess the question wouldn't be like, why wouldn't you go to a tournament? It's like, how can you get to one now? Like, where's the tournament? What's it? Where's it? What's it gonna take? Like, you should commit to wanting to go to a tournament once a year. Maybe you don't live in the Midwest. Maybe your big event, rolls around, once a year, and it's the only one that's accessible, so on and so forth. It fills up quick. Like, but you should try to make it a goal if you love Age of Sigmar, if you love the community. He's been spending time on Twitter to just be like, yeah, I'm going to commit and I'm going to go to a tournament. So just do it. You won't regret it. Temper your expectations appropriately. Align your perspective if you need to. And then just go. Have fun. It'll be a great time. And then why go if you're not going to win? The community. Connect with people you've been talking to forever. An excuse to play 5 games in a weekend. An excuse to, if drinking's your thing, to drink and play 5 games in a weekend, Yeah.
Yeah, it's do that thing that you want to do and have your expectations and then go meet some amazing people. The AOS community at large is full of just really accepting, wonderful gamers that are...
Except Bryce. Bryce sucks.
the nicest man in
literally the nicest person I think in the entire state of Wisconsin. Just like throw shade at him. The worst. Oh man. Yeah. So I we talked a little bit about rapid change, the why go to a tournament, and now I'm gonna be a little bit of a Midwest honk for a while here. So I've had this theory. It's a hypothesis, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. Mephisto. He's just an absolute douchebag. He shits on Tomb Kings every day. Well, they deserve it. Since OBR got teased, yeah. No, I think I own my persona pretty decently. Like, I straddle the line between like '80s comic book villain and like actually a nice person pretty decently. Uh,
Love it.
no, so I have this thing I call like the Gygax effect. Gary Gygax invented, co-inventor of D&D. We can't say singular inventor. Um, from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Basically invented D&D for his sick friend in the hospital so that they could because he was a war gamer, chainmail, stuff like that. And then they brought it down to the micro scale, which is D&D. So D&D and Warhammer are, I think, a lot closer in relation than maybe people initially realize. D&D being like super narrative, no win conditions, so on and so forth. Like, it started out as essentially a minis game as well, a war game, in fact. And the battle map is basically an unnecessary holdover from those days. Hot take for you D&D players. Go Theaters of Mind's Eye, you'll thank me later. But I call it the Gygax effect, which is really just like why I think we do have such an abundance of gaming in this community, why I do think we have such an abundance of tournaments, and why I think our players are of a decent caliber, and why I think we're kind of obsessed with tabletop gaming as a region. And part of it I call it the Gygax effect, but it could be related to the fact that our winners suck ass, and so what else are you going to do?
Right.
But drink and like go hang out in your friend's basement. I guess what I want to ask is for you, like you've got an intersection between D&D and Warhammer. Where does that start? Where did that start? Was it okay? I guess to phrase it a different way, was it Warhammer first or D&D first for you?
It was D&D, and without D&D, I wouldn't have seen Warhammer because I got that. It would have been the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, the black cover, from a bookstore. Then when I wanted more books to add to the collection, went to a game store, and that's where I saw miniature games as a thing. I was probably 11 years old or so, 12 years old. So
Okay.
it's D&D first that opened that doorway to see that mini gaming and the Games Workshop world was out there, and
Okay.
HeroQuest.
Okay, and like you can whisper if you need to, but are you more of a D&D player or more of a minis player, or a Warhammer player?
Oh man,
I know.
I think I get more enjoyment from playing role-playing games than from playing miniature games.
Okay, don't unsub just yet, everybody. No. See that's fun. But then that's I have this problem I have where like the D&D community, and it probably a lot of it's on me. I don't feel as compelled to go and see and meet. I was really beaten up about Gen Con this last year because I went the year before to Gen Con, and I can't imagine you don't know what Gen Con is unless maybe you're like a international viewer or listener. But Gen Con used to be like Lake Geneva Convention. I know it's weird, but it was in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It moved to Milwaukee, and then it moved to Indianapolis, and now it's Gen Con Indy. This would be the big D&D convention. They get thousands, tens of thousands of people through their door for their convention. It's huge. It's massive. It's probably the biggest tabletop gaming or tabletop adjacent convention in the world.
Yeah,
I think there's one in Europe that's like bigger, but
yeah, it's the largest like gaming event convention in the United States and close to the world. Essen is a huge gaming trade show in Germany.
yeah, and that one's bigger, but
Yeah, that gets more people. But
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So like this is one of the world's largest gaming things, and so like last year I went to Gen Con, and I finally had that feeling I had I don't know 14 years earlier at an anime convention where I'm like, this isn't my scene anymore. Like where like you have these like moments where you go like, this isn't my scene in your life. Maybe my Molly's grandma had that with Packers games of all things. Like she just like doesn't go to Packers games anymore. Like she was a season perennial, lifelong season ticket holder, and then she just hit a point in her life where she's like, yeah, it's not my thing, and that has happened throughout. I actually went to Gen Con last year, and I just like went and I'm like, man, this is not my. I played the one day AOS event on Thursday, and then I spent like the next 3 days just in a fog wandering around aimlessly with like hashtag not a weeb. That's right. I spent like just that time period like, okay, I hadn't gotten any tickets for any of the games I wanted to play, so mostly I just demoed games in the vendor hall all weekend long, and it was like, man. But what was missing was like a community from that for me. It was like I didn't. All my friends that I used to go with didn't go. I just went with Haywo, but then he played a bunch of Magic and traded Magic cards for the weekend after the AOS event. And so it was just like I just felt like on a total island there, which was like just strange because it used to be my mecca. It used to be my nerd Christmas. I grew up in pretty much all over the state of Wisconsin, and in particular like near Green Bay. It would I would go on the quest to Milwaukee once a year to go to Gen Con, and then it moved away, and then I didn't get to it as often, but it was like, oh man, this is the big thing. And what I noticed was like kind of this lack of like a community, because like with D&D, as much as like we're talking about as in a gaming sense, like I get a lot of fulfillment out of D&D because of the storytelling aspect. I'm a writer. I want to tell stories. I'm a storyteller. It's who I am. And like my armies tell stories in Age of Sigmar and so on and so forth, but like that's certainly not the focus. And whilst I get a lot of like fulfillment out of D&D, I didn't get a lot out of like this community that I just didn't feel like I was a part of. And again, a lot of it's on me. I didn't make those connections as strong. But I went to one Age of Sigmar tournament, like out of my LGS. I met Kyle, and he's like, "Oh, come to Dragonfall, dude." And then I met Christian Ware, and once I met Christian Ware, it was like, now I'm part of the community. Like they were joking that it's like a sales, like code sales, like where they have like the opener and the closer, and Christian Ware's the closer. And like now you're part of the community.
It really is, and in Dungeons and Dragons for me has always been something I never really have done with strangers until like recently, and not even strangers, like, but people I hadn't gamed with several times before. It's
Yes.
usually a pretty personal group. So like Gen Con, we have a group for 10 years now in a row. We've been going, and there's double digit folks from our Basement of Death like gaming group or that we know. So it's become kind of like a communal event. Everyone goes on vacation to play board games, role playing games, whatever, for 5 days.
Right.
And Gen Con's so large that I think it's difficult to have a community sense there because of how big and commercial it is now, without bringing that or knowing people. But AOS tournaments, you go and it is the community. You're going to an event where that is the community, that microcosm of people is all people there to do the same thing.
Well, even Adepticon is a pretty big spectacle these days, but you still go there and you're like, okay, I'm going to go here because I know Rob Symes from, Honest Wargamer is going to be there with Nathan, and I'm going to go say, hey, how's it going, and play a pickup game with them, which did happen. Nathan Prescott beat me with his Gits in a pickup game the day before Adepticon or whatever. So, like you actually go and you're like, okay, I'm going to look for these people, run into them, blah, blah, blah. I'm actually getting to the point where, like, with Adepticon, like, I don't even want to play in the 2K event. because I feel like I don't have enough time to talk to people. But then I realize I'm like, wait, everyone I want to talk to plays in the 2K event anyway, so that's a terrible idea. But like, but like you have that like it's almost like the community does come first at that event, and Gen Con has become like a big. Maybe it's too commercial.
If you want to go to a convention for like role playing games or like board games, this year you're not going to be able to because it's the same
Gamehole
weekend as
Con.
Havoc. Gamehole Con in Madison is like small scale best RPG con in the world, and I would put a stamp on it and say like 3,000 or so attendees, Madison, Wisconsin, but a bunch of the industry folks, like people from Wizards, different D&D streams, authors, it draws this crazy amount of attention for a very small personal place.
It's I think it's the true spiritual successor to the Gen Con I grew up with. It would be the way because like yeah, I don't know. It was just this weird like growing up moment for me when I went to Gen Con last year because I hadn't gone in like 5 years or something like that by that point. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go back and it's gonna be just as great as it was in college, just as great as it was, in high school. And I had been to Indy before. Like one of my favorite Gen Con memories is Gen Con Indy. It was the first year they did drunken D&D. Instead of rolling dice, you played beer. You basically played beer pong as your rolls, and like the cups were numbered 1 through 20. So you get the roll there, and then you had like a beer hand. You didn't drink from the cup. You had like a separate beer to drink from. And I got hammered. Like I don't even remember the adventure, but it was a blast. And they did it one more year, and then they didn't do a year after that because people were getting too drunk. So it's like, but like I have those great memories from that. I don't know. It was just weird. It was like and like now it's like okay, now I see all the GM meetups, and now I like know people who work the vendor room and stuff. So like now I've started to make those contacts back up. So maybe next year will be better. This year I didn't go, and I felt like I had that FOMO, the fear of missing out emotion kick in.
The other thing too that's been pretty cool for me is I've got some friends that have a game company, Anvil 8 Games out of Chicago. And I've gone to PAX Unplugged with them. I went to Essen with them, to help work their booth and
that's
and
awesome.
Get trips out of it. So like Origins, another big show. So some of these shows I've gotten to see from the standpoint of, the companies that are there, and you meet people that way, that are working, owners of different companies, designers, whatever it may be. And there's a really cool community feel to that group as well. The folks that are working 10 hours in a vendor hall demoing games and talking to people that just want to sit and not play games and have a beer and like decompress after a day of that is another really cool side of things to see.
So that's cool. And I think it's obvious I come off as like a bit of a people's person. It's weird because I'm such an introvert. It's just I'm a very personable introvert. And it all deals with like when I deal with people for too long a period of time, I just need to like not be around people and like regain my powers back. By the end of this marathon I'm running on Twitch, I will be a wreck because I will have had to like talk and have the persona on for such a long. It's not a persona, it's just me, but I will have to have been me for a long period of time instead of just like read a book and like go hide somewhere. So
yeah, it's a lot of time on. I call it being on when you're socializing, you're podcasting, you're
at a tournament
events, you're running games. Like you come home with your family, you have to engage and beyond. There's not a lot of time to like just turn off, and you need that to recharge and find recovery.
Well, that actually like ties back into a little bit of this tournament question. Another thing I don't think people realize is playing 5 games is itself kind of a challenge. If you spaced out 5 games, like 5 weeks, your record will probably look different than playing 5 games condensed. Because it's hard to be on for 3 games the first day, 2 games the second day. And then all the stuff that happens in between, all the people. It's difficult to be on. I kind of for when Joel's on here, I kind of want to dive into maybe what he does, like if he's got any tricks that he does, because you to be in that competitive mindset for that long, or personable mindset for that long, is draining. I get back from an AOS tournament usually by like day 2. I'm cashed out, like in terms of like the personable batteries. My game 4s are tradition, unless I end up playing someone I know. My game 4s are usually pretty muted compared to games 1, 2, 3, and 5.
You made the comment about me and my trampoline, at NashCon, but that round 4 was a sobering experience as well, because we had stayed up pretty late the night before.
Oh God, yeah.
And we had cashed out a lot of energy with our conversation and the associated beers that came with it.
Oh yeah.
So like it was great that me and you got to come back to reality at the same time during that game.
Yeah.
But it was a brain burner of a game, and like you did kind of kickstart my engine. I had to really work for that one, and some of the sweat was hangover. Some of it was, you're focused in a hot room trying to make tough decisions.
Yeah, I mean I think I'm a pretty cerebral player too. Like you've got different types of players, and I think I lean like towards the cerebral side of things, like how I like, I sit back and I think, and and so like I'm not just push my models to the middle of the table and let's fight, the player. But yeah, I was checked out. Oh, not checked out. I was pretty, that was a sobering game for me too. Like I had to like wake back up and get my process back under me and stuff. But yeah, I mean, being on for 3 games and then 2 games, and that first game of Age of Sigmar is always pretty awesome at a tournament. I think regardless of who you play, grudges are, they're a thing and they're great. And I've got like a list of grudges out beyond what I have tournaments for at this point, which is like a weird place to be in, except for Holy Havoc. I haven't grudged anyone for that. But that's a teams thing, so that's a little different. But I have like grudges out beyond like tournaments I have like a queue for grudge matches at this point. But the game 1s have always just been like pretty awesome, because that's where like the game where you kind of have the nerves still, and then you got to get your nerves out the way. And like for me, partway through game 1, my nerves go away, and like just the game takes over, and I can feeling like switching gears, like I can feel the gear shift like in my like personality and stuff in that game 1, and that's almost cooler than going 100 miles an hour. It's the shifting through the gears and burning out like at the stop sign. Like that's almost more exhilarating than like suddenly you're 100 miles, So like that I like game 1s a lot. And then you go immediately down, because then you go to lunch, and for me I like go and snap photos of all the armies, and I talk to people and stuff like that. And then game 2 rolls around, and like, okay, now it's serious time. Yeah, and like so I have like my own little like ebb and flow to like how I go into a tournament and stuff. And that like it's just, the game forces you to be social. And like even in a community of people who probably skew towards introvert, that you have to be social with that game. You get to sort of like explore yourself a little bit, your own makeup, and then you get to meet people, and you get to meet like actual people, through their through their rules and stuff like that. You actually really end up. My favorite games are the games where I'm almost not even playing the game because I'm talking to you. Like the game is happening because I'm never going to slow play you. That dick move. But like you're like, it's like, man, we just like finished that game, and I was just having a conversation the whole time. Oh crap, shake the hand, sign the sheet. Like, whoa, we had a game in there somewhere. Those are like almost my favorite games. So,
yeah,
that and like crushing my enemies and watching them weep. That's also my other type of favorite game.
Total annihilation of your opponent.
Yeah. So I just we have gone. We've gone at this for a little while. I'm going to go grab a second drink. This is where chat needs to wake up and we do our AMA session. This is where if we weren't live, I would have an actual literal break here. So you were smart. You can I see you reach off camera and come back with a different bottle type.
Yeah, I've got my
Dragon's Milk.
second beer ready to go. So
See, that's tasty. See, I sent Molly, like, you saw me looking down at my phone before. I was sending Molly a text message to bring me a drink, and she's just like, slow your roll. And I'm like, all right, Lulu, thank you. I asked nicely. It's just not today. All right, so I'm gonna go mix another drink.
I'll
Um,
entertain chat. I'm gonna
entertain.
participate in chat.
All right, participate in chat, or do you have a rant queued up you can go off on? Because chat's dead tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the narrative reason for going to tournaments.
There you go. The narrative reason for going to tournaments.
I'm gonna see how much I can offend anyone that thinks tournaments are only for competition.
Okay. Fucking useless having a break on the live stream. Chat gang, yeah, chat gang went dead.
Oh man.
All right, so you're gonna talk about the narrative reason for going to tournaments, but not
Yeah.
go to narrative tournaments.
No. Nope. There's a story to be told.
All right.
Even during match play.
So there's a story to be told even during match play, and now you have a few questions. Perfect. Now
this is
I can go
wonderful.
get a drink.
This is wonderful. I'm just going to answer questions then, because you don't really go to a competitive tournament to tell a story. That was just a joke. But so Bryce is asking, what's my favorite character I've ever had in a D&D game? Oh man, this is a loaded question. Bryce plays in my D&D games. Favorite character was probably this ranger named Rattle that had a deck of many things and knew that that's how he was going to go out and continued to do it and went out that way. Narrative to win. I see that. Yeah, my narrative is winning games. I think I've heard that before from Brendan, one of our local guys. He likes telling stories about how he goes to win. Is a hot dog a sandwich? It's meat between bread. I mean, I think that's a form of sandwich. I'm also psyched for Warclans. I saw that out there. That's true. I'm very excited. Oh boy, 80 doesn't feel like enough. Maybe try 100 then. 120. 120 is probably good. Is cereal soup? Oh my goodness, these are hard hitting questions. No, because you're not eating your cereal hot unless it's oatmeal, and then it's probably not enough liquid to be a soup. So I'm gonna say no on that one. This is good stuff. Meatloaf is bread and meat. Yeah, breadcrumbs go in meatloaf. That's true. You guys are great. This is truly some of the best questions I've ever seen in one of Andrew's streams. So keep up the good work. Any ideas for what I should put Andrew on the spot with when he gets back? A loaded question that we have to make him answer. Because I'm willing to make him uncomfortable. Slow bar. Oh wow, how much does Tristan suck? Tristan doesn't suck. He just has an early bedtime. I respect early bedtimes, but I don't understand them. I need the hours after my family goes to bed so I can do fun stuff like hobby and play video games. So I don't understand how he maintains his level of coolness by going to bed at like 7:30 at night or 8:30 at night. How long does it take to get a bloody drink? A very long time, evidently. Several minutes, in fact. I think perhaps he records from like a shed out in the back of his property. So he's got to go, walk through the fields back to the home to get a fresh drink. Bone Shed. Yeah, so that's what I'll ask. I'm going to ask him about Bone Shed being worse than Low 10. Joanna, that's going to hurt him, but I like it. 10 brutes with gore hackers or 2 squads of brutes. I think 10 brutes is going to be the new number you want in Warclans. I think with the reduced points, they're going to be they're going to be fairly good. And I think running them in groups of 10 is going to be the way to go. Say the not Bone Chad. Poor Bone Chad. He's, no matter what his War Scroll looks like, I think he's going to get a bad rap. Because you're going to expect he's got all these guys standing around him, like the cool samurai and all these other things. And I feel like, people are going to expect great things from him, and hopefully the War Scroll delivers, but I could see it in trouble. Ard Boys, I'm sad that the 30 of them that I currently launch across the table are getting one profile. I think the rend on the profile is great, but I'm going to miss the math that had to happen every time I went into combat, where I had to figure out how many I had left of each type and roll the attacks separate and line them up in the right way. I'm still surprised he's not back. Joel, this is killing me. I really don't understand. Maybe he had to make the alcohol, so he fired up his still, and he's waiting for it now. Oh wow, Bone Daddy is no Cetra. No, he's not. I miss Cetra. That's one thing, Tristan, I felt really bad for with the OC is that Cetra is truly gone now. Yeah, he probably is, Joel. Yeah. I think I hear him coming back, though, so...
No. I had to mix up a pair of drinks, one for me and one for Lily.
Cetra is just retcontra now. Oh, this is amazing.
See, Cetra has always been a retcon. Always been a retcon. Cetra existed to give Nagash a better backstory. Finish your point.
So when the chat was at work while you were gone, I think a question that we all have for you is, how ready are you for Bone Chad to be worse than Lotan?
I'm prepared. I am prepared. So I've got this awesome space on my shelf right next to Nagash, my favorite character in the history of all of Warhammer, including 40K, the game I don't play and barely know about. Kidding. Including that other Warhammer and the Ninth Age and Fantasy, like, of all time. Nagash is on the shelf for now, and I've got a nice little space where I will be purchasing and painting up Bone Chad and putting him right next to Nagash. If all the heroes suck, I'm just going to be like salty Death Player for just a whole year. And use what tiny amount of clout I have, because I like to influence just the deep race to the bottom points cuts on all the stuff that sucks.
We don't need more salty Death Players, though. There was a fair bit of those for a very long time.
Really? Were there?
I think so. Before Legions, there was a lot of salt in the realm of Shaiichi.
It's because they had one fucking tome for an entire Grand Allegiance for 4 years. 4 years! They had one book. Can skeletons be 40 points for 10? Do you want to field that army? You don't. That's the answer.
Let me dump out my bucket of 4,000 skeletons.
I don't think Mortek Guard will replace Graveguard, because Graveguard are great. I think Mortek Guard will be... They are in danger of replacing other stuff, though. But Graveguard are good. Their points are finally right. Being, priced per 10 models when they come in a box of 10 fucking models is the correct decision. So there's I'm good with a lot of that. See, the problem is the further we get away from LON having been a book that was released, the worse and worse that book looks. Because it was a band-aid to an entire Grand Alliance that set them up for failure in the future. This was not even like a proper soup book, as much as I hate using the terminology. I mean, so much in that book is garbage. of 25 War Scrolls, you probably see a grand total of 5 kits. Kits, not War Scrolls. You see 5 kits. Because Hex Wraiths and Black Knights are the same kit. Like, you probably see 5 kits out of 25 entire unique War Scrolls in that whole book ever see play. That's a fucking failure of a book. And like, how do you fix it? Make zombies great again? Like, no. Like, you know, it's just like other soup style books, they didn't get a new model. They didn't even have the courtesy new model in the battle box like Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven got. They didn't even get that. You know, they didn't get their Revenant the way Sylvaneth got. Like, they just, here it is. And then as a patchwork, they got Night Haunt, and then Night Haunt models got included into LON, and this is that slippery slope of sucking in the future that began.
Yeah, I think it started a process, though, that you've seen in their design strategy for...
They've gotten better at it. They've gotten a lot better at it. And that was an important step to take. I would literally do a revised LON. I would do LON 2.0. And just like a cities style book where you just fucking, you actually go through and like you change War Scrolls and stuff like that. Because there's stuff in there that's just, and like you can actually like retire a handful of models. Nobody's running Dire Bats. No one's gonna be mad if you retire that fucking model. Oh no, my Legion of Blood army. Yeah, your Legion of Blood army sucks anyway. Make a whole new vampire army. I want to see the Vampire Sky Pirate army, or whatever the hell crazy shit they come up with. I've seen how great OBR are. I want to see the Age of Sigmar, Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, Vampires army. I want to see the crazy thing they come up with. Steam Mech Vampires? I don't know. Whatever, man. Do something. Or Blood Steam Mech Vampires.
Blood engines.
I really thought that that Endless Spells and Terrain was just the 2.0 things. And so I thought that that everyone was going to get them. And what I liked about that, there's a counterpoint debate you could open up. But what I liked about that was it was a way to sell new models for armies with old models. Like Beasts of Chaos. And Beasts of Chaos got some new sculpts with their launch, which is, great. But you were able, now you sell me Endless Spells and a Herdstone. I have new models to be excited about. And new models, as much as I am personally not, I'm not the guy who's just I seem like a hobby hero. I like the hobby aspect. I love seeing great armies. I just know that's not my wheelhouse. I'm not good at that. This game is about models. Whether you're a hobbyist or not, this game is about models and seeing the good models on the table. The reason a lot of the competitive players play Age of Sigmar over other wargaming that maybe has a more balanced rule set is because the models are just more spectacular here in this game. Because if you're playing literal G.I. Joe toys, just old 80s G.I. Joes versus these sculpts, even if the G.I. Joe game has a better balance, you're going to go play the one with the cooler sculpts, because while you're playing it, it doesn't feel like a chore. And that's a problem, is when you're pushing the thing around, just hating the thing, it takes away from the enjoyment of winning. This is why I think even the most nasty competitive player, even if you're a meta chaser or whatever, they end up on an army that they just hate. And for that tournament cycle, they're not as happy as they were a year ago or will be in a year from now. Where they're just I'm winning with, I don't know if the answer was KO a little while ago. I'm winning with KO, but I fucking hate Bubble Boys and Dwarves. And so you're just you're winning, but you're not even happy. Because it's about the models. At the end of the day, it's about the models. And if you're not a hobby hero, you can't even convert your models to be just the greatest thing ever. So you're to get it to a point where you're happy with it.
So, quick question. Speaking of the models, when Bone Reapers come out,
Yes.
it's been a while since we've seen a whole new model range. I'm trying to think of the last faction, but
IDK
here,
comes to mind.
yeah.
I know, I kind of count Gloomspite Gits because whilst they did get like old stuff souped in, which I think that's the best. I still think that's the best book we got in that format, the future LON format.
Yeah.
But like they
So
got a bunch of new sculpts too, and I practically count them because all the Troggoths are new for the most part. The Boingy Boys, the gigantic Mangler Squigs, the new Fanatics. I guess the fact that your battle line is still all the old stuff, so you can't quite count them.
it kind of surprises me that they don't do more of that, though. I mean, since at the end of the day, GW is, they're a manufacturer of models.
Mm-hmm.
I am surprised we don't see more of the books have new kits. Like looking at cities, looking at war clans, looking at they're doing a service to people to use their models, but also like I'm kind of maybe shocked isn't the right word, but I'm close to shocked that we don't see some more variety introduced.
I mean, you kind of do because I think they've used like Shadespire and Warcry as stopgaps. Like, think of how many people run like even just like Flesh of Your Courts. They just got their Shadespire little warband or whatever. Think of how many people are going to go out and buy those new sculpts for their existing Flesh Eater Quartz model. It's like it's just a little bit, but it's enough while they still clear out their inventory because nobody doesn't want the company that makes their game to not exist to keep making their game in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Nobody wants that except for old 8th edition players who made entire forums on how you were an idiot if you bought the Games Workshop models, and here are these proxies you can use that are cheaper. Except for those guys. Sorry, didn't mean to shit on Warhammer Fantasy Battle. No, I'm kidding. Don't hate me. Actually, hate me. At me. Come at me, bro. Prove me wrong. Your game's done. Mine's now a thing. No, like I think that they're still a business and they have to do business stuff. And how many boxes upon boxes of Cities of Sigmar stuff do they just have? They haven't even run the presses on some of these kits in a long time. They just have them, right? They're clearing some inventory, and as the inventory clears, you'll see the new sculpts. I just think that they've used Warcry and they've used Shadespire as a way to infuse some new models in. My skeletons, for instance, I have Shadespire. I have 2 kits of the Shadespire guys just throughout my 240 blocks. So you look in there and you have these like 10 points of visual interest. Yeah, and Warcry can tie people over a little bit. It's just like they have these from a company standpoint, it's a lot easier for them to like make here's a 5 model run than like here's an entire new army.
Well, yeah, and we're seeing that on the 40K side with how long Sisters of Battle have taken, and what they're doing there to reinvigorate an entire line.
To continue and kind of argue against myself, they could just as easily do that with a Cities release. Because you could have had my magnificent new Codpiece Great Sorters as a new kit.
Yeah, the Codpiece shields, the 2-up.
The 2-up Codpiece save. Come on, let's be reasonable here. It's at least 4.
Yeah, somewhere between 2 and 4 is probably where we end up. That elusive elite 3-up Codpiece save.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think and who knows, maybe going forward we will, because I think they shifted their focus a little bit. I'm not an insider. All the people who are insiders are very, very good with their NDAs that I know. So it's like I don't have the inside track, but I suspect that they shifted their business model a little bit. The former CEO, before they got the round tree up in there, they weren't going in a good direction with the game and the company. And they had to kind of take it back to basics and build a good game first. And part of building a good game first is making sure the stuff that's already in circulation is playable and good. Because you grow your fan base and you clear inventory. You know, those are important steps. And,
except for Tomb Kings.
Well, I mean, Tristan's not here, so I'll badmouth them all I want. No, I'm... Tomb Kings... You know, I've got my Persona take, and then I've got my real take. And Persona take is good, Nagash 1. Real take is, it's a shame that they're not in the game because of how successful I think Total War Warhammer is as a video game. And it's nice when people can play the video game and then come to the tabletop and go, hey, what's the thing? You know, that is like the thing in the video game, and then you say, hey, this is this. And right now, I think they got that with OBR. And so, people coming to this game who have never played Age of Sigmar or Warhammer, but play the video games, they're going to come into this game and be like, can I play Tomb Kings? I love Tomb Kings in that expansion. And you're going to go, oh, you can play Ossiarch Bone Reapers. And that might get enough of them. But the true Tomb King player, I think, is the one that was left out in the rain here.
Yeah.
Because I, as not a Tomb King player, look at them and I go, these aren't Tomb King. It's laughable that people call this a Tomb King army, to me. And then the purest Tomb King players I know, like the Dan Brewers and the Tristans out there, they look at it and go, that's not Tomb Kings. And I'm like, we're on the opposite sides of the spectrum. And both of us are like, this is not Tomb Kings. So it's only like the lukewarm middle ground Tomb King player or the new Tomb King player that might be sated by that. So awesome, I guess. And I keep hearing it's because of copyright, it's because of copyright. But like, I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer. That they couldn't make it look pseudo-Egypt enough to copyright. And I just don't hold to that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it would be great to understand, you know, the decisions made more than just outsider speculation, which this is. There's a certain amount of money I would probably pay to like sit in the boardroom and hear the why, you know, and understand.
I mean, and here's the other part of it. For as vocal as Tomb King players are, how many are there really? Might be another side of it. I was kind of talking a little bit ago, I don't know if this was on stream or like during the marathon or something like that. Like, why do we see Beasts of Chaos players? Why do we see Beasts of Chaos players? Why did they get a book? Why did they get a book? You want to know why? Because their fucking models keep selling out. That's why they got a book. They released that book. New Zealand and Australia could not get the models, period, because they were fucking out. That's why we saw Beasts of Chaos models. Or a Beasts of Chaos book. Because at the end of the day, they sell. And so you're... A little bit of it's fan service, a little bit of it's, you know, lip service to the fans. But on the other hand, it's like, I bet you their models were moving. I bet you they were moving all the time, consistently. And so you're going to take an easy shot at, like, every Chaos army and kind of uses some Beasts of Chaos stuff one way or another, or had at the time, you know, because it was a lot of GA Chaos and God-marked stuff for Chaos, and there weren't really Chaos Tomes. It was a real easy way to go, everybody gets something early, right? Like, Slaanesh, you have a new thing because you mark it, and now you're playing Slaanesh, and you don't have a tome yet. Khorne, same thing, blah, blah, blah. They could just do that. It was a nice way to like hit a bunch of stuff. I think that the stars just kind of have to align. I also think that multiple teams are actually working on stuff simultaneously. I think that it's like a series of tubes like the internet we all know from Al Gore's metaphor. No, I'm kidding. I think
you have product teams, kind of that,
yes.
that modern corporate agile feature teams are working on things in their own silo, bringing them to fruition.
Yeah, and some teams get done before the other team, and you may make a little internal competition for who's going to try to release their city's book versus whatever book, and one team doesn't get through their product testing that quite as quick, and so I do think there's a lot of stuff in the pipelines, and they probably don't have as many people on because they're still a small company. They probably don't have as many people on, like as many hands on deck as they need to bring all of these things to fruition. So yeah, be a little patient with it. I'm just really happy we're getting a full new model range. I'm just really happy we're getting a full new model range for an army I'm gonna fucking play. Suck it, haters. Like, no, I actually feel terrible. I feel terrible because I didn't ask for this. Like, I was not one of those guys taking to the forums, when am I going to see my new stuff? When am I going to see my new stuff? So I feel the worst because I'm just sitting here minding my own business, trying to figure out how to retool my, like, existing death stuff for the future. Cool if you like. I do think Night Haunt, I really, really think Night Haunt has answers to the meta right now. We're just not seeing people play Night Haunt. For whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to run 120 fucking ghosts. But, like, spooky ghosts, not my thing. They're just not my thing. I love skeletons. Big fan. Skeletons and vampires. And then, like, weird fucking corpse stuff. Lo and behold, they just did that. Awesome. For me, personally. But, like...
I've got 2,500 painted Night Haunt and 4,000 in a box just over my right shoulder.
And...
Still in.
10 more coming your way, buddy. No collusion. There's no, but like but anyway, ghosts aren't my thing. They weren't my thing. So like yeah, ghosts aren't my thing, ghouls aren't my thing. And so like oh man, I was really happy Flesh Eater Courts was like for 1 week I was really happy Flesh Eater Courts were dominant. And then I was like not like this too far. But for 1 week, I was super happy because I'm GA Death pretty, first and foremost. When I got into Age of Sigmar, LON didn't quite exist yet, so I still think of it as GA Death. Like I'm super inclusive, hell yeah. All of us race to the top, let's go Death, hell yeah. But like, I recognize that I have my own leanings within model ranges and stuff, and ghosts just aren't for me. And ghouls just aren't for me. Vampires are for me, but I'm still waiting for Soulblight down the line. But, like, I am all about the death rattle first. And I was fine. Like, I got my Graveguard back. I was doing just fine with my Death March list, my Bone Electric slide list. Death March plus Legion of Sacrament. Actually, 7-inch hero movement skeletons. Let's fucking go. Like, having a lot of fun with that. I was fine. I was patient. And then they come up with the thing that just seemed like a targeted shot directly at everything I wanted. And I'm like, I wasn't even asking for this. So, like, all those people who were like, I want a new dwarf faction. I want my elf faction. I want Tomb Kings to come back. I want all these things to come back. I'm just sitting there like, kind of feeling like a piece of shit. And then I overcompensate by being super hyped up.
So what do we get? What's the next new thing? Not a revisit, not an updated book.
Oh, brand new model range?
After OCR, what is the next shock that's going to shake the AOS world?
So, part of me has learned to just not even predict things like this. I can predict the meta way better than I can predict what fucking army they're going to come out with. Because when the IDK rumors started coming out, it was, right around April Fool's again? And Fish Elves have always been the meme for as long as Warhammer has been a thing. And they fucking came out. And I'm just like, huh? Who wanted this? And then, like, actually, like, the sculpts are fantastic. The people, the IDK players are some of the most, like, they're immediately IJ level of loyal. To me, I think there's, like, a level of, like, levels of loyalty between factions and stuff. It's basically, like, IJ players at the very top with, like, dwarf players kind of close, but like just not quite. You can walk into a bar after an Age of Sigmar event, nobody there but no Warhammer, and be able to identify who plays Iron Jaws in the crowd. Like Iron Jaw players, or specifically Orc players, are Orc players are Orc players. It's just it's maybe I'm being Warhammer racist here, but like like the loyalties of the army loyalties I find fascinating. I think Beasts of Chaos players are also up there. So if Death is my main love, Beasts of Chaos are they're my mistress. I love Beasts of Chaos too, and being able to just kind of be allowed close to that sun that is the Beasts of Chaos community, I could tell they're some of the most righteous dudes ever, dudes and dudettes. It's fucking great. So faction loyalty.
Whoa. Tristan, back in the chat.
And we are back. Holy shit.
We have summoned him. It was enough talk of Tomb Kings. He's back.
Mm-hmm. No, Fizz, your physics, I love it. Good pun there, buddy. Yeah, I don't know why you didn't even get I don't know why War Clans didn't get the token,
War Boss Shaman.
Whatever, random. You have to buy the box to get the model thing that they did for everybody. The way Flesh Eater Courts got it, the way Skaven got it, the way Khorne got it. Everyone got the thing, right? Like, I don't even know why they didn't do that. I don't know. I don't know why cities... My biggest criticism of cities specifically is that they didn't... When they did the handful of models thing that we all memed on, it was really funny. I speculated that they did the handful of models thing because we were going to see some new kits. And we didn't. And I was just like shocked. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. But it's a lot easier to print a book than it is to print some models and bring everyone back to the table, let them all play their armies again. So that's all I can really say. But back to your question that I jumped down a huge rabbit hole on. What's the next thing? What's the next out of nowhere thing? We are going to see the Celestial Logic Elves sooner rather than later. That Slaanesh is back is kind of a big deal for any elf lore. And so I think we're going to see Malarian and Teclis elves sooner rather than later. I think we might see it as a double book. Part of me was thinking it was really going to be Dark Elves and High Elves reimagined. I think we're going to see a weird double book, like a yin and a yang book. Mm-hmm. And like they're going to have they might have like a really sweet mechanic where like when they play together they're one distinct flavor, and when they play separate they're two distinct flavors, like a complete, not Neapolitan, not like not like a melting pot, but a little kaleidoscope of crazy based on like how you build your army, like anti-synergies within like this book, and then like a yin and a yang sort of vibe. So I think I foresee something like that happening sooner rather than later. That Slaanesh is back, and we had the lore story where Teclis is essentially offering to bring in his boys, and Sigmar's like, no, we wait. Makes me think we're gonna wait, though. And you've got to be building towards whatever this new Dark Oath STD thing is. And so here's my half-course bold prediction shot. I think we're going to see a new Chaos faction. Something crazy. And I think it's going to be the next big narrative event, the way Soul Wars has been a pretty big narrative event, the way Malign Portents was a big narrative event. We're going to have some... Archaon comes back with his crazy new army.
I actually was going to say that. I feel like we're going to get what Warcry has built from a narrative standpoint to develop a unification of these, Archaon's new legions.
Yeah, we gotta get Tzeentch real quick, but that's more bringing the old stuff up to the new stuff. So we'll get our Tzeentch version of Slaanesh / Blades of Corn, right? We'll get a Tzeentch. Nurgle's already got theirs. Nurgle's needs a rewrite with just some errata and some points fixes. The book's fine. They've got their new stuff. They've even got their piece. You can throw in some endless spells or something down the line, whatever. But make their dudes explode on modified sixes instead of just bring them up to some new language for that book, and they're just fine. But what I want to see, if we see Seraphon, and I do think we'll see Seraphon, it's going to be another IJ. It's going to be another IJ/Cities thing. It's going to be the old thing being made new again. The question was, what's the new thing? Big, like, bold statement, new model range, cool thing we're going to see. And I think it's going to be a Chaos Army next. And I think it's going to be Archaon coming back with Archaon's, like, new stuff. And one of the main reasons I say that is, obviously, Warcry. But also, you look like Sigmar's got the Stormcast Eternals as the new force for Age of Sigmar for humans, right? Mm-hmm. Nagash just came out with Nagash's new take on his main force.
His elite shock troop.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, with the Bone Reapers. Like, he looked at Sigmar and went, okay, you kept all those Supremo heroic souls and you made the Stormcast Eternals. I'm going to take 4 pretty awesome warrior souls and cram them into one construct and, like, fight you fair up. I don't know that we'll ever see an insect army on account of Tyranids existing. But... oh, I'd love to see Juicers. Juicers are from Rift's RPG I was talking about the other day. Juicers are like, they're like Universal Soldier from the old flick, except like with tons and tons of drugs. It's great. So they're like Bane Universal Soldiers. It's great. I would love to see that. That would be awesome. Do that. Yeah, he's got to have Banes. Like, he's going to have an army of Banes and, like, Universal Soldiers that are chaosified.
It'll be what Chaos Knights and, like, should be. You know, these hulking Varangard foot troops.
Oh, yeah. Like, we're going to... no, it's not like GURPS. GURPS begins with the word generic, universal role-playing system. Rifts is the opposite of generic. It's one of the most flavorful things on the planet. Yeah, so it's I think that, like, that's my bold prediction, tinfoil hat moment. I do think we'll get the new elf range of sculpts, but I think that's maybe a little bit further out than people want.
All right, I'm here to throw questions at you, and make this a bold prediction 5-minute segment.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back to D&D, so I lose everyone that cares about AOS.
Yeah, chat's going to die off again. They're not going to pay attention anymore. Yep,
that's fine. That's fine, because this is 2 dungeon masters talking about what they love and care about most, which is settings. What do you think we see? So we know we're getting an Eberron book. In the future, do you think we'll see another campaign setting come from Wizards for 5e, or do you think we won't?
What Wizards has done is they have reinvented their business model as well. For, like, this digital age has done some stuff to traditional gaming. And when I say traditional gaming, everyone in the chat needs to know that, like, I mean traditional board games that you still play on the table, right? Or not necessarily board games, but traditional gaming is, like, still table games with dice that you physically play in person, yada yada. They've had to compete with an emerging digital market. You look at, like, MTG and, like, Hearthstone, essentially. Like, Magic the Gathering has... their decision was to basically to try to kill the tabletop thing and go digital. That's their business market going forward. Whereas with Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, they've actually doubled down on the tabletop. Age of Sigmar too. Age of Sigmar has doubled down on the tabletop. Like, yep. It's fucking great. I love it. As a curmudgeon, ancient nerd, like, I'm not an antediluvian nerd. Like, those exist, but I am certainly a curmudgeon, like, progenitor nerd. Um, there's a D&D. What they did is they kind of got rid of the idea of a splat book entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they just got rid of it. And so you have essentially their digital version, which is the Unearthed Arcana, which is I think like mini little splats of classes and things like that here and there, but it's all playtest stuff that they don't have to fully rigorously go into. And then they've rolled in a lot of their new stuff into their adventure paths, their adventure books, their modules that you buy, and now it's got new feats in it, and now it's got new stuff into it. And they've been really diligent about doing that. And we have gotten campaign settings very few and far between. We'll see a new one. Yes. We'll see a new one. But I don't know what it'll be. They're not exactly one to invent something new out of nowhere.
Right.
But I could see, like, because Apocalypse settings are pretty metal. They've got Ravenloft, but Ravenloft's enough, like, a module for all intents and purposes. What I wouldn't be surprised to see is, like, essentially a Armageddon Greyhawk.
Oh, wow. I like it.
That, like, I think we'll see a new setting, and what I wouldn't be surprised to see is, like Greyhawk, like a Greyhawk Armageddon. Like, because Greyhawk was always, like, Greyhawk was very much the LOTR thing, where, like, veiled that it's Earth, like, very lightly veiled that it's Earth. Greyhawk was, like, Earth, except they made it their D&D's version of fantasy. But I could see them taking that and then just, like, punching it in the mouth and going kind of over the top with it. Because that's something that they don't have right now. Eberron is, that's their steampunk,
Mm-hmm.
And Ravnica was weird out of nowhere, but I feel that was more an attempt to bring Magic the Gathering players to D&D, because that's not 100% conversion rate,
No, it's actually pretty low.
Yeah, it's a very low conversion rate getting the Magic the Gathering player to come to D&D. Like, it's weird, because I feel like D&D players are more transient. They're more willing to go out and play other games than, like, other people are to come play our game.
Do you think there's any room for what Cubicle 7's doing with the AOS RPG to bring some of the miniature gamers over to the role-playing world?
I think what Cubicle 7 is doing right now is stay the course. It's a great idea. Because tabletop RPGs, and this kind of goes into, like, what Ravnica didn't quite do, but I think could do if they relaunched it or they put a little bit more effort into it. I guess that's why I don't think the Ravnica thing worked very well, is because I don't feel like their heart was in it. It really was just to, like throw it out there. But what Cubicle 7 is doing is they very consciously realize that tabletop RPGs are the most pop culture they'll probably be for, like, a full, like, generational cycle. You have Stranger Things and Critical Role bringing people to tabletop RPGs in droves right now.
Yeah, I mean, look at Amazon bestseller. Like, it's crazy to see the D&D Player's Handbook is, like, one of the top selling books out there.
Yeah, because people have never been more interested in tabletop RPGs since the Satanic Panic. And face it, parents, the Satanic Panic blaming D&D for Satanism and stuff brought more people to the table than it scared away. Hot take there for you, depending on your generation or age group. But yeah, this is, I mean, again, the pop culture right now for tabletop gaming. You're on the tail end of the hype for Game of Thrones. That hype is still there for, like, the people who are reading, but, like, it's about getting the pop culture fan, right? And nerd is for the most part popular culture, but there's still niche markets within that, and D&D and Warhammer are, like, two of the big niches. I'm happy you're catching it live too, Casual Hitman. Yeah, so I think that it's never been a primer time to do what Cubicle 7 is doing, which is you probably have a section of Warhammer players who haven't played D&D, but they're interested in tabletop, but they need something familiar, because it can be really difficult to go, okay, I'm interested. I love fantasy, but I've never played. Like, I've only ever rolled D6s for Warhammer, and like, yeah, I've played, like, I don't know, Monopoly Catan and Settlers before. But like, to have them go, okay, here's 20 different dice, and here's all the different situations, and to get them out of the like the if then, one of the most common questions I hear as a DM is like, well, what can I do? And then you say, what's the response? Anything, right? Quantifying anything to somebody who's never played an RPG before is one of the most difficult things to do as a DM, because they don't know the rules for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I think Cubicle 7 is doing is they're striking while the iron's hot. They're doing it at the exact right time for the cross section between pop culture and niche culture. They're taking that niche and they're bringing it into a game that will hopefully be communicable to the Age of Sigmar player who's never played D&D. And then that's the gateway drug into a whole world of tabletop RPGs for a whole new fan base. And so I'm a big fan.
I think Tristan's not a big fan, and he wants us to talk more D&D. Is what I'm getting. Trolling effort in chat here. He wants more D20s, skill checks and saving throws, less war scrolls, match play, battle plans. That's what I'm getting from his comments here.
Yeah, I get that too. I could just pan TK for another 30 minutes.
Yeah, let's talk about Cetra.
Should we talk about how Cetra lost, or how Cetra's a Stormcast Eternal now? Which avenue? Which one should we talk about? I'm not
okay. What Sigmar hero would Cetra most be? Is he a Lord Celestant? Is he a
No, I think he's a Celestant Prime, the Hammer Man, right? Comes down with a hammer, because he sits around doing fucking nothing and then shows up last minute and takes credit for someone else's work. But he does it spectacularly.
by choosing what results on a dice he wants?
Yeah, like he just shows up like on turn 4 or 5 and like wrecks something.
Yeah.
And then he's got a MacGuffin hammer.
Did we just get? Is that a corgi emoji in chat?
That is a corgi emoji.
God, I love your chat. Fantastic.
You liked the D&D more? Of course you liked the D and D more. Yeah.
That was so good.
Bryce had a question, and I'm not sure if you answered it, but he like your favorite character you've had in the game so far. Did you answer that one, or did you skim over that question?
I facetiously answered his character, his first character,
Right.
who I did enjoy, but
Which game?
Honestly, it's probably my brother had a druid that was in a homebrew campaign I did that was kind of a seeker for these, parts of like a dead god that were stones that had fallen to the planet. And his druid was like, he played neutral so well.
True neutral is the hardest alignment to play in D&D, I think.
He brought like this boy to this horrible, like dangerous, evil woman, because he understood like she can keep him safe in a way, but like the rest of the party vehemently against it. So there's that way a player plays a character that can add to that so well. So that's probably it.
Nope, not approved yet. So which is harder to teach, Dungeons and Dragons or Age of Sigmar?
5th ed made it a lot easier to teach D&D, but I think it's easier to get somebody playing D&D because of the role a dungeon master has versus being an independent player of an army in AOS, because there's a lot of rules and understanding phasing, which are much more complicated than, okay, you want to do this, roll this dice, add a modifier, and somebody else manages the success and what happens after that.
Right. Well, you have a referee in D&D automatically, and you don't have a referee per se in Age of Sigmar. Question from Ballo. When will Vlad and Isabella return? Isabella should return. Vlad should not. Vlad's story is done. There's your hot take from me. Vlad gave up the von Karstein ring for love to save Isabella from like the Nurgle rot or whatever, because he found out that like when he came back with the ring, he was fine, and he gave up the ring to Isabella for love, and thus ended his long story. He even kind of reconciled with the Empire when he went to help them out and stuff, where he's like, you know what, whatever. So like Vlad's story is finished. It's done. But Isabella was kind of a MacGuffin a lot of her life, and I would like to see her have a real story. People are like, oh, Vlad should come back and have a revenge plot. Fuck that. What does he have to revenge on? He's succeeded. Isabella should come back with the revenge plot, kicking ass and taking names because somebody killed her beloved. Also, the first thing she should do when she comes back is just fucking break Manfred's neck in front of the entire Legion of Night, and then become the new Legion, the Mortarch of Night. And then release a proper faction with, you know, more than 2 units. Yeah. Hot take. No, Vlad's ghost doesn't need to kill Manfred. Like, just Isabella should kill Manfred for being a punk ass. Make Blood Knights great again. Exactly. I want to see Blood Knights be great. Give them, I don't know, they're going to have to do a new kit because those old, the out-of-print $100 a box kits aren't just doing it for me anymore, so they need a new kit. And I would love to see a infantry, like, vampire duelist foot soldier type thing, akin to, like, you know, witch elves or something, where, like, you've got, like, a 20 or 30 block of them. That would be awesome. Way awesome. Put them on 32s if you must. I know it makes them less good if they're on 32s, but that would be great. I want to see, like, 32 mil base, like, thralls, you know, Namarti thrall style vampires.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, the Manfred part of the kit can just become generic leader on Netherbeast, because the Legion of Night should be far more subtle than riding a gigantic fucking skull mountain into battle. And then, like, give Isabella actual assassin rules where she can hide in fucking units. And, like, how terrifying does that become now? If you have, like, she could be with the Blood Knights, moving fast and fucking you up, or she could be hiding in the block of, like, 20 vampire thrall unit or whatever. Or 30 block of thrall unit. And, like, pick your poison. Be fucking awesome.
Tristan is... Oh, man. Tristan, I just... Don't take this the wrong way, but I just want to hold you. I just want to make you feel that it's going to be okay someday.
Yes. Replace zombie. You know, you can keep zombies. Just, like, make them even more useless and make them 40 points. Like, just make them the most useless. They can only move or attack. They can't do both. Like, just make them the worst and make them 40 points so no one ever runs those stupid models ever again.
Yeah, that box is...
That box is brutal. I think that box is as old as me. Yeah, have Chaff be mortals enthralled to vampires, and then you could, like, do some sweet kit bashing stuff with the cities boxes. Like, you can have all those
great swords.
Yeah, get all the great sworders, get all the glorious get all the glorious cod piece in your army now.
Yeah, vampire cod pieces.
God, he's so mad. I'm sorry, Tristan. I'm sorry that Vin Diesel get all the honey he want. And Vin Diesel, I mean Nagash.
Oh, jeez.
But like, at some point, you're gonna have to move on. Like the entire world has. 8 entire mortal realms have moved on.
Rumor has it the 9th mortal realm is actually done.
Yeah, the corpse cart ones.
Oh,
Need more Cronenberg. Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, like a Gormenghast style would be pretty sweet. Going deep with the Gormenghast and Cronenberg horror references.
Nurgle just needs a character named the Fly.
Do people really want to see bug AOS models? Do people really want that? I wouldn't think so. I think bugs are dumb.
I mean, there's a certain faction that loves their spiders.
Spoders. No.
Fantastic.
No. No. All right.
We've gone full circle, I think.
Yeah, we've come back to AOS. So I promised I would tell you a story about the worst mistake I ever made as a DM.
Yes.
And so I'll do that, and then and chat can be chat, and we'll see where that gets us. But basically, so you on Twitter today, you'd asked me like you'd posted the a GM basically lives in a constant state of fear of failure, to which I replied that like essentially a healthy fear of failure, healthy being a key term in this. Fear of failure is what, as a competitor in Age of Sigmar, and a storyteller, and an artist, and whatever it is you're doing in your life, a parent, a healthy fear of failure is what helps you be good. Because if you weren't afraid of failing, you would take everything for granted, slough off, whatever. But with that healthy fear of failure, you're always striving to be better. You always have that internal voice that says maybe that wasn't good enough, and then you look at it and you go blah, right? So that's very important. And like, I've been a GM of tabletop RPGs for a stupendously long time, and it makes me take for granted that I still have to try. Because there's like, when you have stats memorized in the book, you prepare a lot less because you're like, oh yeah, they're gonna fight a green dragon now. And then they do, and you're just like, the dice off the top of your head, and the AC, and whatever. And you get really good at freestyling because you know roughly how many hit points a thing should have at that CR for what your party's dishing out. And so you get really good at that, and you start to slack because you're not afraid of failing anymore. You're just like, I got this. I fucking piss gold. And so my worst failure as a DM actually happened really relatively recently in terms of I've had micro failures throughout, but my greatest failure most recently is the party was dealing with a cultist arc, and this is so I essentially play tested 5th Ed, and then 5th Ed went live, and we kept playing that game from the playtest group, and then I took over as DM, and I had been playtesting it, but then the DM who was like on the inside track is like, okay, I don't want to run this anymore. You run it. You have the most experience, and so I'm like, okay, cool, I'll run it. So I kind of took their plot line and made it mine, and I started running it, and now we're half a year in or whatever. The party's like 10th level or so, and they're doing a plot line with it. It was called the Cult of Dragonrite, which was essentially this worshipping dragons, any dragon as a god, essentially. And not just, like I was bringing back that like classical, really like a classical fantasy trope. Like if a dragon showed up to a village, it would be like totally a god. And You know, you exist in a fantasy realm where, like, no, there are literal gods like Palor and shit just, like, fucking running around doing stuff all the time. So the cult of Dragonrite, where they, like, worship dragons, specifically chromatic dragons. And their leader was an evangelist that I had converted from 3.0. And so there was an evangelist class in 3.0 that could give a speech as a free action. So put in a free action is it's free. A round of combat in D&D is 10 seconds. So within a 10-second round you can give a whole speech. I found this fascinating as hell, and so I updated it for 5th Ed mechanic. And I'm like, I am such a fucking boss of D&D, because I remember this obscure-ass class and this fucking thing it could do, where it gives a speech. And the whole thing is the evangelist would convert people. And so, to bring home my narrative, that the Cult of Dragonrite was this super impressive, terrifying thing, because they had a person who could convert you to their religion as a free action. Right? I made an encounter where the whole trope was going to be they fight the final big bad evil guy, but within the first 3 rounds of combat, the party is all dominated. Every one of them is enthralled to him. And then right when he's giving the big bad evil guy speech, a dragon's gonna bust in, and he's going to scream, fight the dragon, save me, save me. And so the last order he gives to all these dominated people is this panic thing, and then he goes and cowers in the corner. I didn't get to make it to the part where the dragon busts in and tries to eat him. And so, like, what's cool about the narrative is the dragon busts in and tries to eat him, and he's the Cult of Dragonrite, so there's, like, a nice little irony there, you know? The party's ensorcelled, but then the boss fight becomes the dragon and figuring out how they can put the evangelist in harm's way while trying to fight the dragon. Right? I, on paper, thought this was the fucking coolest encounter ever. It gets home my narrative about how terrifying the Cult of Dragonrite is, how serious their leader is about converting people. He's got a supernatural power. Which is why you're like, how are people falling for this crap? And they've been doing, you know, a 7-adventure arc of, like, espionage and intrigue. And they finally get him cornered in a room in the Church of Dragonrite, which is underneath the existing church of whatever that town's deity happens to be. And, like, there's a dragon who's just, like, really pissed off about getting everything wrong about dragons. That tries to eat him. Fucking, I'm pissing gold right now. This is the greatest idea a DM has. But it didn't make it past round 2. The party was getting fucking pissed. Everyone was falling to the mind controls. The cleric was one of the first ones to, like, just fail the dice rolls and become mind controlled. And just like, well, I'm the only one who can break the mind control. Fuck this. Blah, 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 blah. And I didn't communicate to them that this combat was going to have an interesting mechanic. Enjoy. Right? Because I thought everyone was on board with how quirky my games get and how weird my mechanics get. And I had taken for granted that this wasn't a group of gamers I had gamed with previously. I had gamed with a couple of them. And a couple party members in particular hate losing player agency more than anything. They would rather I kill their character on the spot from a no-chance save or die. Like, you open up the Eye of Mordor and it shoots them with a goddamn laser beam and they're fucking dead. They would rather that happen, no save, than I dominate it or take control of their character.
Yep. Take away that choice from them, that independence to act.
Yep. And, like, I made just these, like, several mistakes along the way. And what I still defend as a fantastic boss fight, for what it was doing narratively speaking and what it was doing mechanically, because now you have a combat puzzle, right? You have to solve the combat puzzle. How do I get the evangelist to get murdered by the dragon? Like, well, following the two orders we had. You know, save me, kill it, kill it. And, like, but it's made me, every time I've done a weird mechanic, it's made me put extra thought into it. So recently, within my last campaign, I did the, it might be 6 seconds, you're right, Katie. No, you're fine, Katie. Within my last campaign, I did they fought a boss who was essentially like a demigod for a god of time. And it was this old man who had found this like enchanted pocket watch, and he could keep rewinding time, and he had done it so much. It's 6 seconds. It's true. I just said 10 seconds to make it sound more plausible. Yes, 10 turns is a minute. I understand. Anyway, he had this like pocket watch and whatever, and so when the party fought him, he had already seen all possible futures and pasts. So any save or die roll failed again. So he automatically passed any save that he had, anything he had to roll a die for. He automatically made the DC on, and any attack roll against him automatically failed because he's already seen all results of the dice.
He Doctor Stranged it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. And so, like, basically, of all the probabilities on a D20, it would always favor him, or it would always favor him, is what the encounter's mechanic was in brackets. And so the party basically had to figure out a way to, like, trick time to beat him. And so you had things like the ranger, instead of shooting her bow, because you've contemplated all realities where I shoot my bow, threw her dagger instead. And the barbarian was like, okay, well, I'm not going to attack him, I'm going to attack the square underneath him. I'm like, okay, roll for the square. And like he rolled high enough that would have hit the thing's natural AC, so he hit the thing instead. Joe Haywo's was the best, where he sent me a time-stamped like screenshots of him rolling the dice from 10 minutes ago, and like and sent it to me in my email, knowing I wouldn't check my email for like a full turn of combat, and then be like, and then like he goes to hit the guy, and he says the famous Animu line, not a weeb, hashtag not a weeb, Mephisto's not a weeb, you're already dead. And then Joe sends me a PM, check your email. I check my email with all the timestamp, and I'm like, you're right, because he rolled it all out. And I'm like, yep, you do that damage. And why was it fun, Physics, to answer your question, is because the players got to fight a boss that they hated over the course of like 3 adventures, essentially, and lie to the GM, which is like kind of like the most fun ever. Is when you get away with lying to the GM. That's why it was fun for the players. Or, like, it was literally I'm a pretty hard-ass for the rules, but this was the game the systems. This is me telling you can game the system as hard as you possibly can come up with right now. To all my players. That's why it was fun. Because every player got to come up with how they're gaming the system as hard as possible. And the boss didn't have a ton of HP, so it lasted maybe 3 turns. So it didn't like outstay its welcome. It was long enough to go, here's the puzzle. Oh, okay. And then like the gears start turning and people start like coming up with plans and formulating them. And then when they kill him, then all of the reward that was, they gained tons of XP. They got the pocket watch in their possession. Like all these different like rewards, because the reward versus the risk versus the strife that they go through was it met it. But I had learned my lesson from the no player agency thing to run that encounter just this last year. So learn from your failures is the simple way of saying it. But don't be afraid, don't be unhealthily afraid of failing as a GM. And that is advice for literally everything.
Yeah. Back to the tournament point, man. I learned more losses, and I think I've heard this echoed across the board. You learn more when you fail than when you succeed usually. So like your takeaways from those moments where you have that like, I kind of screwed that up, you're going to remember that more so than the times you get it right.
Yeah. I mean, and even like, you probably, on average, remember your losses more than you remember your wins on a grand enough timeline. Like a long enough timeline, you probably tend to remember the losses a little bit more. You remember the noteworthy, like, games. Like, I can remember games where I don't remember our grudge match, and not because we were drinking, because I just remember meeting you and hanging out with you and talking to you, and that was the highlight of that game. I remember the dice being gloriously skewed for me with all the objectives on Star Strike falling right exactly where I was the whole time. But I don't remember a single play or decision I made that whole game. You know,
I just remember learning Neferata could stack the hit, and that was where I cried as I was at -2 on everything.
yeah, and see, that's the thing, is like, you lost that, so you remember a specific thing, right? Like, I don't remember a specific thing beyond that one die thing, but that's just that's whatever. But you remember that specific lesson for Neferata going forward, right?
Oh yeah,
And so
the 1 out of 100 times I'll see her.
You're gonna see her more. No, I'm kidding. Hot tech. Look at the tech I'm cooking up with Neferata lists. No, so, like, I mean, to wrap it all back up pretty nicely is, you know, why even go to a tournament if you don't aim to win? Or if you can't win, we can switch it for a don't aim to win to you can't win, because, you know, this is your first tournament. You're not bringing filth. You're playing your pet list. You've got your pet army left over from AFED or whatever. There's so many reasons to go to a tournament, and a healthy fear of failure is one of your best companions for getting better at the game of Age of Sigmar. But keep it in perspective. That's where that healthy part comes in. You know, it's okay to, like, go, I'm going to go realistically 1 and 4, 2 and 3 with this list. Just, what are the lessons now are you going to take from that? Community lessons, hobby lessons, you know, fuck it. I don't care about the win-loss record at all. I just want to meet people. Whatever it is. It's one of the greatest games. Talked a ton about D&D and how much I love it, but this is really one of the greatest games to go out into the wild and just play amongst all the trees with all the people and random wildlife creatures you'll meet out and about. Anything you wanna wrap up on?
Just appreciate you having me on. I know this is the month of Australia, and I'm as far from kangaroos.
Shit, we forgot to make a kangaroo joke.
I made a reference.
Okay.
I mean, so.
All right, yeah. So there was a kangaroo reference. No, I'm really happy we're on, because I mean, it's where the DM bond is strong, and the more I learn about you, the more I realize, like, our like trajectories in AOS have kind of paralleled each other. Shout outs. What do you want to put on blast? Throw it out there.
Yeah. So certainly, first and foremost, Steve Herner is the mastermind behind Holy Wars, Holy Havoc, some of my favorite events. He recently started doing a YouTube channel where he's showing some of his terrain stuff. So Herner's just one of the greatest guys in the hobby right now, and I mean that from, you know, what he does charity wise and tournament wise. Just a great dude to chat with. So definitely check out his channel. And I
think it's Holy Hammerhern, I think is the YouTube channel, because there's like there might be a Holy Wars or something like that. But certainly I'll get the links in the show notes here. I can attest, great dude. I ran a tournament once. Total stranger sent him a message because he's who people are like, oh, if you want to talk about like terrain and paintless, talk to him. It was him and Domus were like the two people told me to talk to in the community. And as a total stranger, he told me everything. And later on, when I was coming with paint schemes for Beast of Chaos, he's just like, here you go. So, can attest, great dude. And then, so.
Yeah, and if you're bored, check out the podcast my buddies Josh and Troy and I do with Bryce. Bryce has been often in the chair.
You mean the intern?
Well, yeah, but now he's almost the fourth chair. I mean, we've had him on like 3 episodes in a row, so he's moving on up. We're grooming him to replace me when I ride off into the sunset like Brett Favre.
On a tractor.
On a tractor.
On a tractor.
But yeah, so Playing and Slaying would love if you guys come and give us a listen. And we're iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, all the places you get your podcasts.
Yeah, they do some Warhammer. Troy in particular is a big 40K honk. So if you're like into 40K, Troy brings the 40K love. You got the AOS focus, and then just like it's just a wholesome podcast that sort of like it really talks about like the games, and like you get a little bit of that like the creator side of the gaming, because you do have the connections to like yeah, wearing Wranglers, exactly. Yeah, so you do get that like that awesome vibe.
Appreciate the chance to hop on though, man. We've been talking about this, and it was a blast. Definitely looking forward to seeing the rest of this month play out for you. Your Mephathon?
Mephathon, yeah. Mephathon. It sounds like you have got a lisp when you say it, so you know it's good. Or it sounds like you're drunk, which is very Wisconsin.
Very likely. I mean, how many more Dragon's Milk can I have tonight?
Those are like 12%, too. They're pretty hefty. Those are like you need a steak dinner to wash down a Dragon's Milk. They're pretty tasty, though.
Yeah.
They're heavy. So next podcast is actually going to be... I'm going to have Bryce and Christian on, and they're going to be talking about the elf side of Age of Sigmar's City of Sigmar tome. And that'll be the closest thing I do to a battle tome deep dive, because I'm just not a... There are tons of great content creators out there for doing reading a battle tome to you for 2 hours. Go watch them, by all means. They're out there. Vince does a fantastic job usually. He always has the most relevant guest imaginable. Like, Artist Wargamer, Coach, Doom, like, they all do it. It's great. I'm interested in that, like, that off-kilter sort of vibe. Christian Ware is Australian AF. What are you talking about? But yeah,
Christian F and Ware.
Christian F and Ware. Yeah, so Christian F and Ware, and so that'll actually be a new format thing. Is we're gonna have two talking heads joining me. So that'll be experimental. I've got Joel McGrath coming up. I've got Mr. Cinderfall Gaming himself, Luke Stone, coming up. So we do get back to the Oz base, the Oztober base there. But yeah, thanks for coming on. I was really happy to do this. Let's do this again, or maybe I'll invade the basement of death sometime.
Well, I was gonna say, I'll float that out there. Tristan wants some more D&D. We'll have a D&D show on Playing and Slaying, and bring you on for the true behind the DM screen storytellers. Sit down and talk about narrative.
Oh yeah, actual process, how you write an adventure. We'll get into the really deep stuff. We'll go deep. Yeah, double D deep. All right, thanks again. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Muff.
Good night, everybody.